Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. The CBLOL playoffs roll on. We've got a banger here today for you. Not as good, maybe, as yesterday's and the way that series ended, RMC, but I'll leave you to be the judge of that, viewers. RMC, you were there for that one. Do you think that this has any shot of living up to it? This one seems, this one between Red and Los Grandes seems like it's a little more, it could be a little more lopsided than the last one.
So here's the thing, 404. I didn't think that this would be more contested than yesterday's game, but I've seen some of people's votes on Twitter. Notably, the Havala casters actually think Los Grandes might win this. So, considering people think it might be closer, 404, there's always the chance it could be a bigger banger. Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't hit that one snuck up on me. I was not able to hit the mute button. No, but look, I think this one could be interesting because let's get the playoff bracket up here first so we know exactly what we're working with. Yesterday, Pain took down Kaboom in 3-1 fashion, so they will face off against Cade Stars. And RMC, just to recap kind of that one for you, how do you feel about Pain Gaming's chances going into that one against the Cade Stars teams that finished first in the standings?
Oh, boy. I mean, Pain showed that they are clutch when it matters. I think Karaoke and Denkido look better with that sort of Ari Lee Sin combination than they have in the regular season, but it wasn't the cleanest game for it. It was the funniest, but it wasn't the cleanest. And up against Cade Stars, I don't know. That team is clean.
Yeah, they feel like the type of team that could punish any sort of mistakes from Pain Gaming. But look, a clutch factor is what they wanted when they brought in Titan, and it seems like everyone else has started living up to that mantle. Now we've got Red Canids versus Los Grandes, the 3 seed versus the 6 seed. Everyone and their mother, it felt like, was rooting for Liberty. They wanted them to get that spot over Los Grandes. But Liberty, with 3 straight losses to end the year, the dream died there for them. They ended up with the same record as Los Grandes, but they lost both games they played against Los Grandes during the regular season. That ultimately was what did them in. So we will see Liberty back next split, no doubt, re-energized, rejuvenated. But RMC, let's talk about this Los Grandes team. Before we get into Red, which I feel like is a little bit the juicier discussion, Los Grandes, we can get the roster here up as soon as we can. Los Grandes, Super Clever, Seas, Envy, Cello, Cabby. I didn't know what to think of this roster going way back to the beginning of the year, but they have really, really pleasantly surprised me. I know, again, everyone wanted it to be Liberty. I honestly wanted it to be Liberty, but I'm happy for these players, particularly Super Clever. He is probably the, maybe not runaway rookie of the split, but definitely a favorite for it, RMC.
I think he would have been the runaway rookie of the split, if not for Leleco having to sub halfway through the season. I think he kind of stole it away here in our CBLOL English rankings at any rate. But this Los Grandes roster, maybe I'm the black sheep of the broadcast because I was actually rooting for Los to make it over Liberty. I think Super Clever, Cello, these guys coming in from the academy scene have done a great job. And talking about Korean imports in general, Seas and Cabby. I think both these imports have had a good season. We've had a lot of duds recently in the last couple of splits or imports. Seas and Cabby are not it. These guys have been performing, have been popping off. And the one veteran, the one CBLOL veteran on this team, Envy, 4x4. Look at the uniform he's wearing in this picture.
I know.
It could not be a better matchup for him to prove himself here in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, Envy, he's been around the block a little bit. Like you said, he's a veteran, and you stick him in the mid lane. When mid lane right now is in a role like it has been over the last few years, where you just need someone to steady the ship, right? You need someone who can execute basic League of Legends macro fundamentals, not lose lane, you're going to do a lot of good, right? It's not really a traditionally hard carry position. And Envy, aside from when Vex was in the meta and he was getting quadra kills on that Furia roster like nobody's business, that's not really who I've associated him to be, but he can be should the situation arise. And like you said, RMC, Season Cabby, what a duo, right? They have been really, really strong because, like you said, for every Season Cabby, there is there's a Flawless, there is a Destroy, right? There is someone who comes to Brazil, there's a Trick, and for whatever reason, it doesn't work out and they flame out in spectacular fashion. But these two have provided a really good backbone with Envy to allow Super Clever and Cello to rise up here. But I have to say, if you got to look at one weak point here, it's probably Cello.
Unfortunately, so the lowest damage per minute of any AD carry in the league at 487. That is not a stat you want to see. And to give credit to Cello, he hasn't been a problem for Los Grandes. They're still winning games. He's never a detriment. He's not somebody who can just be absolutely blown out of the water in the laning phase. He's just not the star of this team. And into Red Canids, though, he might have to step up because he is up against Bruntsy Jojo, the undisputed highest pressure bot lane in the league. We talk about the fact that, hey, Cello isn't putting out a lot of damage right now. Well, Bruntsy, in contrast, leads all AD carries in terms of damage per minute and damage share. So, yeah, not being a detriment is not good enough against Red.
Yeah, exactly. Not being a detriment is good enough to get you into playoffs. Now you're here, it's a different ball game. I mean, we did our award show, our tier list live Gringos Liberados episode, and all of us acknowledged kind of at different points, mostly during the Robo conversation, is that, look, we're talking about regular season here. When we get into playoffs, it's a completely different ball game. These guys, they turn it on, or some of them choke, right? This is effectively a brand new season here. And Bruntsy and Jojo, you can see from the uniforms that they're wearing in these pictures, they played with each other on Fluxo last split. That roster that had so much hype, so much investment, monetarily and otherwise around it, that flamed out spectacularly twice in the playoffs when it combined 1-6 in the playoffs over the course of the entire 2023 year. Not good, to use a technical term. And one of them, they lost to their former, their now mid laner, Grefthar, and that Cade Stars roster in that 5-6 matchup. But RMC, this roster is, I mean, aside from maybe the last week, but like from weeks 5 through 8, they looked like the best team in Brazil.
Yeah, Red ends the second round robin with 7 wins, 2 losses at the very top, tied with Cade Stars in terms of their second round robin record. So obviously Red seems to have figured out what works for them. And what works for them feels like, hey, FNB is always going to be FN Boss in that top side. Always has been, regardless whichever roster he's on. Bruntsy and Jojo are incredibly dominant. We can actually leave them alone and they will still win pretty much every 2v2. The big change for me has been Aegis and Grefthar. Grefthar feels like he said, okay, you know what? I'm just not going to be a carry for the team anymore. And that's okay, because Aegis will do it for me. And that's how the Cousins have always looked best. Back in 2021, 2022, when Red won those 2 consecutive splits, it was Grefthar playing support for Aegis.
Yeah, it was Aegis, Grefthar, and Jojo, right? Though they have 3 holdovers from that back-to-back championship-winning roster, like you said, RMC. And FNB and Gigo, they're kind of cut from the same cloth, right? You can stick them on Orm if you need be, but they are the same prototype of top laner. And I think you hit the nail right on the head. Like the surge of the top side has really been what has allowed Red to surge to the next level. And like you said, Grefthar just kind of accepting, that's what's crazy about it. I got tripped over my words there, but you said exactly what needed to be said, which was, look, it's not like this is a crazy formula. It's not like we stumbled upon something. We did this for 2 splits, and it worked like a charm. You've got Jojo, the superstar 80 carry. It was Titan. Now it's Bruntsy. This mid-jungle, they're best friends. They know how to accentuate each other's strengths. And FNB, he is a monster. He is arguably the greatest top laner, never to win a title. That is something that is going to follow him around the rest of his career until he wins one. And I think with this Red roster, they've got a shot, but they've got to get past Los Grandes here first. So RMC, let's break it down just a little bit here. Let's start in that bot lane, right? You said, look, you can leave Bruntsy and Jojo alone because, I mean, to me, if you're talking about just, okay, lane by lane, where could the biggest disparity show up? It's hard not to see that bot lane as a cause for concern. But like you said, Cabby, or C's rather, he is, he has been extremely solid, and he's known to help that bot lane out a lot, whether to cover for them or to get them ahead. So Bruntsy and Jojo, they're going to have to play effectively a 2.5v2.
But forever, that is the bot lane I trust to be able to actually do that. And it's a very huge stylistic mismatch between both of these teams. It's almost like savagery versus strategy. Red Canids, they are just savage in every single lane, and they just win out across the board, and they snowball those leads. Los Grandes, they're a more strategic team, right? They play as a team. They look best when they team fight. So if Los Grandes can get out of the laning phase then I think they have a shot. But as you mentioned, bot lane, of course, is the lane that we are most worried about, the one that is most likely to get blown out of the water. And for Celo, he's actually a pretty good team fighting AD carry. That's where he's kind of shone with the rest of the team. His laning hasn't been bad. But when you're up against Brunsey Jojo, the fear I have is they start calling Aegis down into the bot lane. If you call C's, they call Aegis. And if it comes to a 3v3, Aegis has also looked very mechanically strong, better perhaps than C's. And if individually all three players are better, then I don't know if 3 is enough to get that teamwork really rolling for Los Grandes. And it could actually snowball worse than just an isolated 2v2.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, like you said, if, like, I think it's no real doubt that Red have the better players at almost every position. Like, if you were to line them up pretty much, role by role, maybe mid lane is the one you'd swap if you want a more complete player in Envy as opposed to Grefthar. But, I mean, they literally had that
They tried it.
split.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They ran pretty much that same roster last split, and it didn't work out too well for them. But, look, like, again, self-awareness, I think, is the most underrated trait in a human being. And in a League of Legends player, that could also not be further, or that could be closer from the truth. You get what I was trying to say here. But yeah, RMC, no, I think I think you nailed it. In the top lane, though, I mean, do you expect anything from Super Clever here, right? Because he's a guy that can absolutely hold his own. He didn't have kind of the highlight crazy, pop-off moments that someone like Makes did on something like a Cassante, but this dude does have a pentakill under his name, right?
The first
Rumble
pentakill
in his bag, exactly. And how do you see that matchup going up on the top side? Do you think we get, it feels like that's what the meta has been, is kind of fighting fire with fire a little bit.
100%. And that is actually my lane to watch. Because let me throw some stats out there for both these players. Let's start with Super Clever. He has been the super rookie. Like I said, probably should have won Rookie of the Split if not for Leleko's existence and coming through partway. Super Clever is actually the second highest goal difference at 15 of all top laners. So he is actually laning incredibly well. Maybe not as many kills, but he gets that early pressure. He's got the second highest kill participation of all top laners. We mentioned before, Los is a great team for team fighting, and the third highest KDA. Tied with actually Lonely of all players, interestingly enough. But Super Clever, very, very good top laner. And his stats back that up. It's not just an eye test right now. He is actually playing incredibly well individually as well as with the team. Now we look across the board to FN Boss, FN Beast, FNB, whatever you want to call him there. He is the top KDA of all top laners. So as good as Super Clever has been in terms of surviving and getting kills and assists, FNB has been better. And FNB does not die. He's got the lowest average deaths, highest average assists, and third highest kill participation. So FNB, his laning stats are actually a bit weaker than Super Clever, but his impact in team fights is right up there with.
This should be really, really interesting. Yeah, and again, I think if we're talking about where are these junglers going to go, right? And how much Aegis and Grefthar are going to try to move out of lane and get themselves to dangerous positions to help the rest of the team out. That is something that's absolutely going to be worth watching. Brunsey going to be on the Xayah. Wouldn't be surprised if they grab the Rakan for JoJo. With that being still off the table and with a bunch of powerful supports still left up, I bet Red go with that R3 there.
Yeah, I would not be surprised at all. In fact, I think Los might want to consider stealing away the Rakan. It's a great ball delivery system for the Orianna, and I love that they actually first pick Orianna. She is B1able, and more importantly, you're denying Grefthar one of his supportive picks that he's really excelled at. We've seen the Orianna Nocturne combo be one of the best combinations that Red have in their arsenal.
So they grab themselves, speaking of another kind of blindable top laner, I guess depending on who you ask, but it feels like he is strong enough to where he can withstand, if not straight up dominate, a couple of different 1v1s, no top lane bans aside from that Renekton. And that Renekton ban feels like it was very intentional, right? You are picking that so that you have an easier matchup into whatever you are playing. And the Rel going to be picked up as well. Again, you talk about synergy with the Orianna. That smells very, very good for them.
And we've seen the sort of Rakan Rel matchup plenty of times, and people seem comfortable with both sides of the matchup. It feels like Los Grandes are kind of preempting the Rakan pick. Now, for while they're hovering the Shaco, I want to talk about the bans a little bit, because interestingly, Red banned 380 carries against Celo. We were just talking about the fact that Celo is probably the exploitable point on this Los Grandes roster a little bit, and Red have doubled down on that. They're not removing the strengths of Los Grandes. They're doubling down and saying, we are going to punish this bot lane. So, as you predicted for the Rakan to come through already, that is something very aggressive. That is something JoJo can literally try and take control of the lane 1v2 on.
And I think it's going to be interesting to see how Red approach this second set of bans, because they are saying, no, we think that Rel is going in the jungle, whereas I think, again, with the Nocturne still open, right, that is a lot of physical damage coming through, but you got the Nocturne Orianna combo that could still be a thing. You could flex the Rel down into support, but I think C's really likes that champion. We've seen him be good on it, right? He likes kind of these Rel Sejuani type champions where he is, like you said, really contributing to this identity of Los Grandes as being this high floor, good team fighting, not going to make too many mistakes sort of team. They play their fundamentals very, very well. And having Kalek and Coelho as their two coaches, Kalek especially, that should not surprise you. If you don't know anything about CBLOL history, Kalek, right, he likes to play League of Legends a very specific way, and it is a very fundamentally sound, high floor style of League of Legends.
Yeah, and I think Los Grandes have fully adopted that particular style of play, and that's why the team fighting has been so strong. We see the Ari ban as well removed from Grevthar. Now, Talia is still on the table. We're talking utility. And sure enough, it gets locked in, because why not, right? It's been what's given so much pressure to the side lanes. Oh, this bot lane. Oh my god, this is an abusive bot lane from Los Grandes. This is not a team fight bot lane whatsoever. This is something that Celo and Cavi are taking to dominate the bot side, which is a complete departure from how we thought they'd play.
Yeah, this is really something, because like you said, the first 3 bans, right? I mean, all the bans went into the bot lane from Red. 380 carries and 2 supports. They are saying, I mean, like you said, there's 2 schools of thought. One, you try to taper down the strengths, or you say, no, we're just going to punish the hell out of Celo. And I think still, right, Celo is saying, all right, look, he's put the gauntlet on the table. He says, all right, I think actually we can win out this 2v2 and generate advantages by ourselves. It's going to rely on C's, I still think, a little bit, but that Zyrakan, it's still a tough lane to gank. Rakan has a ton of safety with that extended E. But on the other side, RMC, Aegis and Grevthar with this Vi, with this Talia, level 6, that's when they got to start making plays all over the map. FNB going to be on the Jax in the meantime.
Yeah, so now suddenly things have changed up for i4, because for Los Grandes, as you kind of mentioned, they've got a really strong early game and mid game power spike with that Orianna, with that Rel. They are still going to be looking for team fights, but it's not that sort of late game scaling style. Instead, you have to get the pressure in the bot lane, and that's going to enable you to get advantages in the mid game or in the team fights, kind of following that in the early mid game. And you do kind of winning lanes, it feels like, in most of these situations. Red, on the other hand, with the Xayah, with the Jax last pick, Jax doesn't exactly dominate the Aatrox early. You win level 1, you win level 2. And then after that, Aatrox starts to kind of beat you out. Counter-Strike is less effective against the Aatrox. You will eventually outscale, and I think that's what Red is going to be looking to do. Outscale. But that's not how the players work for i4. So I think game 1 could be kind of messy, kind of chaotic, because despite the composition, I still think Red is going to try and throw hands, perhaps even when they should.
Yeah, but that, like you said, that's just not how the players operate. That is just kind of how these guys like to work. They like to throw hands. They like to be in the midst of everything, and you could expect that Aegis is going to be visiting a bunch of these lanes very early on. It's just where he decides to, maybe move ahead, right? I think the early jungle pathing is going to be very interesting because, like you said, like we were talking about earlier, right? If C's gets called down, Aegis is going to get called down as well, right? That bottom lane, because I don't trust Celo and Cavi to be able to get that advantage by themselves, right? They're going to have to be really intelligent about when and how they call C's down. Even with these champions, this is a very oppressive bottom lane, in and of itself. But Runzi and Jojo, right? They've got, what, 3 CBLOL titles between them, right? They've got a lot of experience playing together on Fluxo, now on Red, and on a champion duo like the Xayah Rakan. If they get bodied in lane, that, to me, will be the biggest surprise of the entire series.
And if they don't get bodied in lane 4-4, if they actually win out, that's going to be shocking too, because it means that Celo and Cavi, even with an incredibly lane-dominant duo, Caitlyn, the only matchup that kind of maybe punishes her is maybe the Ashe or maybe the Jhin. If you lose on the Caitlyn in lane, that tells us a lot about how this series is going to go. Los Grandes' bot lane at that point is a bit of a lost cause, and I don't think you can salvage it no matter how much resources you throw in, and then you just have to look at Envy or Super Clever to be your carries instead. Now, I don't want that to happen, so yeah. I kind of am hoping that Celo and Cavi do come out with a lead in this bot lane with the picks they have.
Yeah, otherwise it's going to get really, really ugly. And you see just kind of, again, Los Grandes, this is a departure, like you said, from what we're used to from them. They're used to playing just a very fundamentally sound, no mistakes, almost passive. I don't want to say like actually passive, but like almost sort of passive style of League of Legends. But this is a little bit different from them. But I think you could couch it another way and say, look, yes, it's a little bit different, but even with this level 1 invade, right? Trying to get early advantages no matter what, because they recognize that this comp is going to spike at a very specific spot. You could call it very, it's a departure, sure, but it is a very self-aware League of Legends for now, for Los Grandes.
It is. And one interesting thing we should note about Celo is that his most played champion is actually Kalista. They played 6 games of it, and he's actually won 4 of the 6 games. Okay. So I guess if you give him an early game champion, he does know what he ought to do with it. So that's why I'm kind of quietly hopeful for this Caitlyn Ashe lane. We've already seen Celo and Cavi really getting aggressive, really getting poked down, taking advantage of the fact that at level 1, Zaya kind of can't do anything.
Yeah.
You need the level 2 for the blade call.
Yeah, exactly. And especially into into a lane like this where you need a little bit more safety. You've got the Guardian, yes, from Jojo. You've got some healing, you got some shielding, but again, Jojo, he's not going to take Q until level 2 or 3, probably level 3, right? With that incredibly long range E, you're probably going to go WE on this Rakan. And again, you see just a massive wave that they're stacking up. Sweet mother of God, that thing is enormous RMC.
Yeah, normally when we see that big a stack, we're thinking, oh, potential dive. Now, that isn't what happens with Nash Caitlyn. Instead, what they will do is use it to try and poke you down as much as possible.
Oh, Cello's got to be really careful here. Already blown the flash and the heal. Aegis sticking around. He got his blue buff stolen, but he went wolves into Gromp as that wave was crashing down.
Okay, I didn't expect that. I saw Aegis there doing Gromp, and I was thinking, or doing Grox, pardon me, and thinking, hey, you know, after you do Gromp, like, yeah, maybe you show just to scare them, but unfortunately, Cello stepped up a little bit too far, a little bit too close to that wall.
Yeah.
Instantly punished, and now you can go back down and revisit that.
Aegis very happy to just take that level 3 gank in. Grefthar doesn't have a lot of mana, and he is not long for this world. No mana, no health. That means first blood over to C's.
It was just that easy, and Los Grandes predicting where Aegis would look to go. And because it was Aegis who pulled the trigger first, honestly, a little bit too close to turret for my comfort, we saw Los able to punish that. And it didn't go over to Envy, but I do want to talk about Envy a little bit, because regular season Envy traditionally has been a bit quiet. And in playoffs, that has been where Envy used to shine. Now, on the Red Cannons roster, that wasn't the case. He couldn't get enough resources. But now, if he gets resources, he could definitely take over the game. This was the lane we kind of talked about, saying that, hey, Los Grandes might actually have the edge here, and it'd be even more poetic that it'd be Envy facing his replacement.
Yeah, facing his replacement, facing the guy he replaced. It's all very funny with Red Canids, how things just kind of tend to gravitationally pull back to something centered around Aegis and Grevthar. FNB not going to get the counter-strike here onto Super Clever, but Aegis going to walk over this ward. Super Clever knows he's coming and flashes immediately here, despite having the level advantage. Not going to want to risk anything.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. You don't even want to... Aegis still has his flash, so you don't want to give him the idea, the thought to try and land that Q. Sees the once again... I don't want to call it late to the party. Let's say he's arriving fashionably late, because he knows when and what he can do. He's here to stop the Aegis potential regank, and I'd love to see C's kind of wait in there and look to punish FNB, because that wave is just about to bounce.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't think that was gonna like hard crash, but with both top laners starting to recall, yeah, that's honestly what I thought he was going to do, right? And with C's being a little bit ahead of Aegis, right? He knows that Aegis is still level 3, right? He's shown on a couple wards, so he says, look, maybe I can afford to take this time, but he opts instead to take the tempo play, grab immediately that Bomby Cinder, and play for, like I said, just the tempo, and been trying to press that advantage onto Aegis. Throws the pink ward into the Dragon Brush. Pretty good stuff here for both these junglers. It's been fun to see them kind of, you know, us try to get into the head of these junglers. We talked about how much of an impact they could have, especially pre-6 and into that mid-game, how action-packed this game could be here. Aegis going to start with the Dragon here, immediately just yoinking it out of the pit, and C's knows exactly where he is. Yeah,
and Aegis as well, kind of knowing that C's was going to be in the area, actually backs off as Siege is charging up the Hex Flash. But that is still a leash for Los Grandes, and it feels like everything is going their way, and part of that's the vision they put down. Every time Aegis makes a move, it's on vision. The Observer has done a great job toggling that. Topside gank, they saw it coming. Bot side gank, they saw it coming. Even the pink that Siege drops into the back of the pit, Aegis doesn't see it. But Siege sees that the Dragon got leashed and just never went back.
You see that that tweet down there at the bottom. This fan here has a divided heart with FNB and Envy. I guess a former Red Canids fan, loving that Envy was on the team at one point. These two former teammates, like we said, facing off two great solo laners of the game. FNB never won a title. Envy, he's got 2 under his belt, most recently in 2020 with INTZ when they upset Pain Gaming 3-1 on the roof of a building in Sao Paulo. I don't know what building it was, actually. I never figured that out, but that was considered a huge upset, and that was Envy, Tay, Shitty, Macau, and Jockster. They went to Worlds. They kind of got rinsed, but that's okay. Here comes Aegis coming in with the cease and desist, flashing forward, but Cabby and Solo do a nice job of playing that one backwards. Grevthar, meanwhile, making his presence felt up in the top lane and feeding the kill over to FNB. 1-1.
And perfect from Grevthar, using that timing actually on Aegis, where you've seen Grevthar work with Aegis to make this happen, but instead this time, a lot of teams, you expect the gank on one side and you forget about the potential gank on the other, especially when it's Atilia who can't make that map play. Aegis has not given up. And honestly, Aegis kind of wasting time a little bit here. We saw C's take away 2 of those Void Grubs up top, taking advantage of the gank in the bot lane, and that kind of helps to balance out that kill that went over the way of red.
Well, and you got that dragon as well, right? So Aegis, or and
True.
excuse me. C's, excuse me. Good lord. It's a tough one today, boys and girls.
Excuse me?
Excuse me. Yeah, no, it's been tough. Let's get another replay of this because we kind of panned up to this very late, but Grefthar took a really non-traditional route with his gank here on Taliyah.
Yeah, I didn't just run straight up river. Actually went through his own jungle, and because of that, no aggressive vision to catch his movement. And you could tell super clever as well. Just wasn't expecting it, right? You knew Aegis was bot side when you started that action, so you're thinking, oh, I'm safe. This is a 1v1. Surprise, it's not. Grefthar is secondary jungle. The man roams incredibly hard, and so far, props to Grefthar as well. He only dropped half away. He's actually not that far behind for that roam.
No, it's really not too bad. And that's always been the knock on him, right? Is how much does he sacrifice to get, whether it's Aegis ahead or his other laners ahead, and usually it works out, but it can be a balancing act with something like a Taliyah, right? Now, to be fair, this composition, it can team fight decently well, right? You don't have a true tank, but you've got good late game power, you've got side lane threat, and Grefthar, even though he's on the Taliyah, right? Obviously, her strength is pre-6 or kind of in the early and mid game, is to go around, make movements on the map, help secure neutral objectives with that wall. But she can do a metric bleep ton of damage in the late game. Now, thankfully, she doesn't have to because you've got Brunsey on the Xayah, because you've got FNB on this Jax as well. So they've drafted around kind of Greftar's style pretty well here.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this bot side wincing right now for because as much as we're talking about, oh, Greftar's doing great, he's helping FNB get ahead. Yes, Red have scaling. We've got to look at the immediate now. We are 9 minutes into the game. There's 1,000 gold lead for Los Grandes, and it is coming across almost every single lane. Now, that is to be expected with the drop that they do have. But Celo and Cabby specifically are up 15 to 20 CS consistently. They are shredding this bot lane turret. And as the Caitlyn, you need to take down the turret pre-14 minutes and start rotating to the other lanes, becoming everybody else's problem. And I was just thinking, if you rotate mid right now, Grefthar is not going to be able to play the game anymore into an Ashe, into a Caitlyn. And even trying to defend a turret might be a little bit tough. He went for an early tier, so he doesn't really have great wave clear. Doesn't have the damage to insta-clear that wave.
No, he went not only early tier, but CDR boots as well, right? So, yeah, really nothing to speak of here as far as combat power. Now going to grab that lost chapter, just shredding that final wave down. Now he's going to do a little bit of damage here. No objectives to speak of just yet to come up, right? You've got the Void Grubs still. I don't know if those are left over. I think they've spawned into another camp of 3 at this point. But the second dragon of the game, an Ocean Dragon, is going to be available in a minute here. But like you said, RMC, Celo and Cabby executing this lane very, very well so far. But you also pointed out they need to start making it everyone else's problem, right? Where do they rotate? And it's about this point in the game where you do see the bottom laners rotate up to that mid lane, right, to get, what was then, last year Rift Herald control, now Dragon control, and other stuff as well. But C's, he's making his presence felt. I thought maybe Cabby was going to try an arrow initially before Grefthar backed to try to help out Envy, grab himself a kill, because the all-in from Envy, right, with that lost chapter, it's certainly there. Well, hang on a second here.
FNB? Okay. I thought they were really going to go for it, but Super Clever has to wait for cooldowns again. Did use all his Qs there. And it's winning out the trade for now, still, as we expected. And for to kind of go back to your point, the bot lane, they haven't rotated out because they haven't taken the turret yet. Which is why I'm surprised that Los Grandes didn't commit harder for those Void Grubs. As you mentioned, now it's too late. At most, you can get 3. But it helps a lot for a Caitlyn who is trying to take a turret to be able to spawn those Void Mites, and that simply will not be an option now. He's hiding in the Dragon Pit, kind of playing with fire a little bit. We'll clear this out, and we might get to see our first team fight. It does look like Red wants the contest for this Dragon.
Now the top laner has their TP, but it looks like you said, we're probably going to see a 4v4. Hawkshot goes out, is able to, I think, see Grefthar up there, or at least not confirm his absence in any way, shape, or form. Certainly both these teams recognizing that the game could swing here, right? This is a big opportunity for Los Grandes. Like you said, Envy, or Celo, excuse me, when he's on early game champions, he generally does all right, right? But it's where do you go from there? And with this Caitlyn Ashe, you've seen kind of that mid-game trough be really, really brutal for the Caitlyn. We're approaching that right now, RMC.
Both supports opting to go back right now, and I wonder if they're actually just going to buy some wards to set up for this fight. There we go. 2 for Cabby, 2 for JoJo. So these teams, they're not just rushing headfirst into this team fight. They actually are trying to play strategically, make sure that they get control over this Aegis. We'll be able to spot C's out. And hey, Grafthar could always just hop by, but keep in mind, Envy still has prio in that mid lane.
Aegis is lurking and like ships in the night. Oh, he saw that. He didn't actually see him. They still have no idea he's there. He's got the Vault Breaker charging up, goes in, doesn't actually hit Cabby. The heal goes down immediately. Jojo in with the quickness. Grefthar zoned out of the fight for a while, but Cabby's taken very low. Aegis going all in here. Flashes over the shockwave. Aegis avoided certain death, but the ace of the hole is going to come out. The damage isn't enough. Cabby survives, and those Grundys have to turn on the fight now. Jojo and Grefthar running with their tails tucked between their legs, and Brunsey only now joining the fight. FNB lurking, waiting should the fight go on to jump in on the Aatrox, but no dice there.
And Los Grandes just outhands in that fight, which is, outhands in that fight, which is just shocking. I had to do a double take and confirm that, because I would have thought Red would have just won straight out in mechanics, in just trying to outplay that. But Cabby being able to survive was massive, and a lot of that comes off Envy. Aegis doesn't land the initial knockup. That would have been enough, and that means that Cabby gets out low on health. Now Aegis does flash the shockwave, which is huge, but a simple shield is enough, and now Aegis is just too deep in, too committed. Did C's have to flash there? Probably not, but hey, they get it. Now the big question is, of course, about the Dragon, because that is still up right now, and Red, despite losing a member, they were in a better position and had more health left.
Yeah, especially again with FNB lurking, right? The threat of that was big. He went up to that top lane, but now they're not done just yet here. Beautiful wall here by Grefthar, not going to find its mark. But again, you did get a flash out of Cello, so they're getting, little by little, some things done on the map. The lead is 2,000 RMC, but Red Canids, they know that their comp is going to win out in the late game. And again, you get to the mid game in a manageable position with the champions that both teams have drafted. You count that as a win for Red Canids. And again, factoring in, just look, let's not sugarcoat it here. Red finished higher up for a reason, right?
Sure. Yeah, and that is, I think, the $1 million question. This game, the shockwave just saved Grefthar. Actually, if the order had been reversed, I think Grefthar actually ends up going down there. But
that's
Los
so
Grandes
tragic.
Still, they're up, right? Even though they don't get the kill, they force Grefthar back. They will get first brick in the mid lane without Herald at the rate they're going. And sure, I think Red are okay with the skilling. They're getting the skilling objectives. But a 3,000 gold lead at 15 minutes is going to be a very large one to overcome. And if Los are playing with good hands, with a gold lead, Los could look to snowball, and that is exactly what the game plan should be.
Well, Lady carries on their first item here. You see those leads really starting to balloon, right? It's 600, 700 in the bot lane, but 1,000 now for Envy in the mid lane. Top lane, meanwhile, even as can be on gold anyway. I love those little, the gold difference markers down the middle. That really helps paint the picture. You can get stuck up in CS and kills and all this stuff. You try to do the mental math in your head. It usually doesn't work out. Brunsey immediately pops the Featherstorm, calls the Feathers back, knowing he's got Jojo waiting in the wings. Envy and C's not opting to go in, but they do get that ultimate out of Brunsey. He's still got the flash. He's still got the cleanse, though, RMC.
Yeah, and the rest of Red also kind of rotating down into that bot lane, covering Brunsey after that's been blown. And now they're actually rotating into the mid lane as well. That turret is very, very healthy. So I'm not sure what Red is necessarily looking for with this rotation. It feels like you're looking for a pick or a bust now. They're going back down to the bot lane. Envy, does he know?
That's exactly what they're looking for. Everyone walks over the wards, but Envy and C's playing respectfully here. And again, a little bit of maybe over-aggression from Red, trying to get a pick for what, right? Instead of just kind of playing your fundamentals. I mean, I guess you're not losing any waves out, right? It's not like they're doing it at the expense of anything here. Just looking for these little windows in between waves to try to make something happen. But so far, Los Grandes playing respectfully in that area as well.
Yeah, the only person who's really losing out on Red for all this is Aegis, who is not able to farm whatsoever. But on the bright side, you are also locking C's down. C's has been having to shade and cover Envy in this bot lane. You want to make sure that you don't lose the Orianna, who is vulnerable under turret. She doesn't have a lot of safety tools either. And for Red, this is a good call, right? If you can take control of the game, be proactive like that, it means that Los Grandes can't actually make plays of their own. They are responding to you instead of setting up the sieges that they want to be doing.
And with all that, somehow this mid-tier 1 still has not fallen. Now, let's be clear. It is all but dead, but we were talking about this a minute ago, saying, look, that thing's going to go down in a matter of seconds, right? At the rate they're going. But Red, to their credit, have not allowed Los Grandes to knock that one down. Rift Herald up here. Looks like Aegis are going to start that one up. Now it's their turn, in theory, to try to bust this map open. Still only 3 kills. Still only 0 towers taken between these two teams at 17 minutes. It's been a cagey affair here early, RMC.
And I'm not sure that we should have rotated Envy out of that mid lane that quickly. He was doing great into Grep there. Literally, just one more auto into the mid lane would have been sufficient. Bot side, though, Envy somehow doing more turret damage than a Caitlyn Ashe lane. Envy, this is playoffs Envy. That's all I can say.
Yeah, those Orianna autos, yeah, they're special, but they're not supposed to do this much. Certainly not as opposed to a Caitlyn Ashe. And again, Cello not able to get anything done in the mid lane in the meanwhile in his stead. And actually, it is Red Canids that get the first tower of the game and loosen up FNB, get him going here. Yeah. He's TPing down to the bottom lane immediately here. Envy has no earthly idea. Grefthar might be able to get the solo here. The shockwave comes out, FNB flashes over the wall and gets the shutdown onto Grefthar.
I find that super funny too that FNB went for it at the very end, the flash and everything. Has to commit a lot, and it's Grefthar who actually walks away with the kill. Though I do think that's actually probably better for Rid to be able to get that kill on Grefthar and snowball it everywhere else. But 4-4, it is criminal that Rid got first break and Los Grandes still, despite how low mid and bot are, have not taken the turrets. That is criminal.
Yeah, that is not great, right? Like, yes, they've got a gold lead in their favor, but look, your bot lane's still 0-0-1, right? It has been a very low event game here, and that's kind of what Red won as far as the early and mid game. Both these teams are very good team fighting teams, like we said, but the later it gets tougher for a Caitlyn to really make her impact, right, on these fights, right? Not having an impact in these skirmishes. A fight like this, for instance, feels like the last big attempt that a Caitlyn could have an outsized effect on a team fight, in my opinion. Finally, the mid-tier one goes down here, but Grefthar gonna start up this dragon. Maybe for the vibes here. Super Clever pops the World Ender in this 1v1 with FNB. Not gonna be available for the team fight. Should it break out? And I think it's going to. Grefthar flashes away from the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, and now C's going in. Jojo right behind him. Jojo into the back line. FNB finally joining the fight. Lit up and taken down is C's. They converge on the Los Grandes jungler. But hang on a second here. Cease and desist. Did Envy go too deep? Or Aegis, excuse me, flashes away. I think he realized he did go a little too deep there, but he got the flash. Red Canids, with the health bars as low as they are, not going to opt for this one, or at least maybe not in the way we think. Or, I don't know, maybe they do. That's Red Canids, RMC. They love to throw their hands. FNB looking for a big old flank here. Doesn't have the flash. He blew that in that bottom lane exchange. But Grefthar does have the wall. And that is when FNB pounces. Get the flash onto Cello. Cabby actually going to take down Jojo here. Beautiful flash by Cello. Might have turned this thing around. Aegis has the ball breaker. Going to go forward. FNB is too much to handle. Brunsey gets the two. And no, gets one. FNB gets two, excuse me. And Red Canids walk away winners in that fight.
And in the battle of playoff beasts 4x4 between playoff Envy and playoff FNB, FNB makes the turn 4-0-2 from what was, I think it was 0-0-1 or 0-0-2 before that fight started. FNB on the flank gets it, and really good patient play from Red. This is really bad for Los Grandes because this should still have been during their power spike. But instead, Red is the one who wins the confrontation, and even the way everything played out, right? The initial engage from Los Grandes was good, but look how patient FNB is. He doesn't burn the Jax out at any of these moments. It's still up. Aegis goes in, and that's kind of risky. This was where I thought Red might have lost the fight when Aegis took too much damage. But they so patiently played this out, and right here, they had vision too, by the way. Grefthar getting that Weaver's Wall is what allows and sets up for FNB to actually go in there, force the flash out of Cello, find Cabby, and FNB just kept on ripping.
Really impressive fight by FNB. It felt like he hit everything on every target that he needed to. Brunsey also played that fight really well, getting over the wall like that, right? Still being able to lay down the damage, lay down the arrows. Like you said, RMC, that looked like a pretty dicey moment there for the Red Canids, but now they are ahead. And it feels like this game, the trajectory of it is only going to go one way here. But look, we're still in the mid-game Los Grandes. They've still got a lethal combo, should they find it. You still got long-range damage dealers in Cello, in Cabby. And he's still got an Aatrox that can still do some damage here with this lethality build.
Fair enough, and they also have great wave clear. Right, we just saw Herald going down in the mid lane. Red, to be fair, didn't really try and defend and walk that Herald in by any means. But you can see between Cello, Cabby, and Envy, it's very easy for them to just clear out waves as they come in. The big problem for them is still going to be FNB, and not just in the team fight sense, but the split push sense as well. If FNB starts winning out against Super Clever in the 1v1, you have nobody who can answer the split push. And Red, they don't need to push in against your wave clears. They just need to hold you there.
Let's see what Red Canids can do in this mid game, how aggressively they want to go forward. And well, I mean, this might tell you the answer to that question. Aegis lurking, waiting for something here. He's certainly feeling confident. He's been able to stay even on CS when compared to C's, so he's very happy with his position right now. C's ahead by 100 gold, but again, that is nominal. That is really not significant in the grand scheme of things. But Red Canids starting to pull away here. You mentioned the split push RMC. Runcy, not going to take a lick of damage, actually. Jojo got in front of him, and somehow no one took any damage.
Yeah, the shield is enough. Let's look at Celo's build, right? You've got the Storm Razor, which is good in lane when you're trying to kind of poke somebody down and stick onto them. But in terms of straight damage, it's really not there. And unfortunately, power troughs, you were talking about it earlier for Caitlyn, the power trough is now. When you've kind of sat on that one item, you really need to hit that 3-item power spike before you start becoming relevant to get in team fights. And because of that, because they know you do no damage, Red is taking the risky call of doing a very, very early Baron.
And FNB just kind of, oh no, silly old me, I'm over here, come chase me, I'm a helpless Jax, what am I going to do? And in the meanwhile, Red are ripping through this Baron. Let's see if C's can get in there with a Miracle Steal. Jojo locks him up, it's not going to be enough, but C's, he's committed to the fight. Ray caller out from Brunsey, still laying down the damage. Cabby going to take down Aegis, but Red Canids got what they came for, they got the Baron, and they're going to peel off.
Yeah, and the composure from Red to trust Aegis to win the 50-50 smite there. They couldn't take C's down fast enough, and they were just like, okay, we just turn and burn on my call, insta smite, perfect. FNB didn't even worry about it. FNB just pushed mid-wave instead of actually rotating up and trying to threaten more. It's like, hey guys, I bought you enough time. Aegis, you said you got this, I trust you.
Yeah, and FNB, right, played that fight very, very well. He knew that this was a, barring a disaster, barring a certain turn of events, this was a one-way trip. You were there to get the Baron and try to play this game out a little more slowly because there were still things that Los Grandes could do. And again, with a Baron that early, no matter who you are, no matter what composition you have, that is a risky choice, like you said, RMC. So playing, kind of covering for their options very, very well. FNB, he's a veteran. He knows exactly how to position himself in these fights, use vision, use his presence. The fact that he's got 4 kills, right? They know that they can't leave him alone. He's got 2.5 items right now. A little bit ahead of Super Clever, despite being 4 kills up. He's up 2,000 gold. Now the items are really starting to come in here. Celo, he's finally got that second item. Not quite there yet, but that IE is going to help out a lot.
Yeah, and with the Baron buff, now it's so much easier for Red to actually push in. Yes, there's still good wave clear on Los Grandes' side, better than normal, but now it's not just FNB who can split push. Grab there, another great flash to dodge that.
That feels like the third arrow
time?
he has flashed away from. Yeah.
Yeah, and if he doesn't get hit, that's perfect. The Weaver's Wall is still available. The split push can still continue to go through, and here we go. Weaver's Wall to cut somebody off.
Doesn't get anybody. All 4 members of Los Grandes on the right side of the wall. Brunsey going to take quite a few shots here from Celo, able to get a few autos down. So Brunsey taken pretty low before this fight kicks off here. He's going to grab all the honey fruit, go up to about half health. The Dragon's been started up here, RMC, and Red Canids have full control of the river. Sees knowing that there is no way that this is a good idea to try to contest. Instead, they're going to try to get something done on the other side of the map. Los Grandes grab themselves a top tower if they can. Compliments of Super Clever, but he's got no TP. So if something goes off here in the bottom lane, right, FNB, well, he is right here, actually. So even the fact that he has TP doesn't really matter. The point is, Red Canids doing their job, getting things done on other sides of the map, but Los Grandes responding in kind. Now looking forward here, RMC, with this Baron with this Baron buff, they really haven't gotten actually all that much done. I'm looking at the advantage. It's only 300 gold advantage.
No, and if you keep in mind that Baron grants you, what is it, 1,500 gold?
That's like 1,500 off the rip, yeah.
Yeah, you're actually in a bit of a negative play for Red in terms of how things went. But they did get themselves so point, and I think that is the trade-off that Red is making right now. We are sacking that top side. We gave it to Super Clever. We wanted the Dragons instead. And that fits with their composition game plan, right? They've got the skill and calm, so they're looking long-term. They're not in a rush. It's those Grandes who are going to feel the pressure. And taking that Dragon when they did for Red means that, hey, in 5 minutes, if we feel strong, we force the fight. If Los Grandes give this to us, good luck. You already don't have that much damage in the mid-game, and we negate a lot of the shockwave with the sort of 3-stack Mountain Soul. And if we don't feel like we're stronger, we'll give you that Dragon. We could go for Baron. We could go for your base. We have options on the side of Red Canids.
That's all you want. In life and in League of Legends, all you want is options. And that's exactly what Red Canids have set themselves up for. Yeah, it's really tough to chew through a 3-stack Mountain Soul. That is incredibly tricky to do here. Aegis grabbing himself his second full item, I should say, grabbed himself the Black Cleaver. Opting for that late game, letting Brunsey do his thing just a little bit more. Now, the armor shred from LDR and Black Cleaver, that stacks, right? I'm not crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
One's penetration and the other's an actual shred.
yeah, so you're getting as close as you're going to get, basically, to Brunsey doing true damage. And on 3 items, that is going to be absolutely lethal. And FNB as well, going to be able to do a lot of damage, survive a little bit longer. He's got that Sterix. Things are all coming up red here. And yet, RMC, it's still just a 2,000 gold lead.
Yeah, Los Grandes have been doing a great defensive job of just stalling out, pretty much, right? We talked about the wave clear strength that they have, and they are leveraging that to great effect. Super clever. Has made some interesting choices, good choices, really, with his split push to get pressure elsewhere. And that's one of the reasons why he's still actually up CS, despite the fact that FNB is up gold, because that came from kills. But in terms of the 1v1 map pressure we talked about before, Super Clever is actually a really good laner, and that continues to show. My biggest concern for Los Grandes, though, is that sitting back is not going to favor you. And I understand that you had to do that while you're waiting for Celo to get his items. But the moment that third item comes through, I need to see Los Grandes be on the front foot. They're going early.
Yeah, just going in immediately here. Big old shockwave. Grevthar not able to join the fight here. Los Grandes in the ascendancy here. Celo getting a couple autos down onto FNB. One more onto Jojo. He's going to get it. Trade it back, though. Brunsey taking down Super Clever. Now, how will the rest of this fight go? Ace in the hole going to take a third of Brunsey's health here. FNB, he's too low. To try to flank, try to do something else here. NV going to speed up C's. The big wombo combo is gone. That's all they get here. C's almost gets the Q down. FNB forced to cancel his recall.
But there's nothing for them to take on the side of Los Grandes right now. This is why I was calling for a little bit of more patience. Wait for that third item to come through. Baron comes up in 30 seconds. Yes, Los Grandes can put the vision down. But no, you can't actually contest Red when they come through and sweep everything. As long as Red don't just throw Jojo and say, like, hey, just go clear this out on your own, Red can just brute force their way back in and negate everything that Los Grandes gets after that one pick.
Yeah, you really can't get much off of this. The lead, again, still 2,000. To be fair, it was, I mean, actually, who? Okay, well, never mind. Unimportant question. A just going in here with the cease and desist. Celo taken to half health by just a couple autos here from Brunsey. Getting the TP out of Envy. There to help. That Shockwave is already back up. It's a level 3 Shockwave. Envy's got a death cap. This feels like more and more where the hopes are going to rest, RMC. Celo, almost at that third item. That's when you want to take that fight. But Red, there's certainly the threat of an engage here. Oh, hang on a second. Not going to be enough to convince Los Grandes to go forward here. They thought about it, certainly. Now looking actually towards the Baron here.
Okay, this is interesting. The vision actually didn't catch them out. Age is now dropping the pink, and C's is taking a lot of damage from this. He's not as tanky as he looks with that health bar, and they have to be so careful about multi-direction flanks. TP's available for both top laners, so both of them could join in at a moment's notice.
Doing their thing in the side lane. FNB going down to the bottom lane, Super Clever, going down to respond. And again, I think they're just waiting for that third item from Celo for him to get his LDR. Looks like they won't be able to here.
No, and unfortunately for Los Grandes, they are up against a timer now because the dragon is about to spawn. And Baron is nice, but Soul is eternal within the game. So Red, I like this call. Red are saying, okay, we can afford to sack the Baron to get the dragon. In fact, actually, I'm curious if they'll look to even try and contest this. I saw Grevthar moving up, but I don't fancy their odds against the Caitlyn traps have already been laid down.
No, again, I think that was that was just to kind of look. And again, you've got control here. You've got FNB just lurking in that bottom lane the entire time. So he set it up really nicely here. They say, all right, look, you've got Baron, but guess what? You're going to be defending 2 fewer turrets here.
Yeah, and hey, you take Baron a lot of times for its ability to push to get those turrets, and Red is the one who starts it off taking 2 inner turrets. That's definitely worth. Arrow comes across this time, no flash needed from Grevthar, and whoa, they get caught on recalls.
Oh my goodness, in that half-second window. So for those that don't know, recall takes 8 seconds. If you take any sort of damage in the last half second of a recall, it will not cancel your recall. It will still go through.
Yeah, and with the shield as well, I'm not sure that C's would have been able to actually pierce through and actually do enough damage, because if you don't take damage, if you're shielded, you can get hit and it will not cancel the recall. We look at that gold graph right now. Red are now firmly in control. They weathered the storm of the early game immaculately. And I want to give props to Celo and Gabby because they did their job, right? They got all the pressure down. They got control of the bot lane. They were up CS. So the Caitlyn Ashe was not a fail in terms of how they executed. The fact they didn't get the turrets early, I think, is really what backfired. And now it's Red's game to lose.
Yeah, because then you just can't really do anything off of that, right? You can't get that deeper vision. You can't contest objectives as effectively. Arrow goes wide here again. But again, I commend Cabby for kind of using it on cooldown, right? That's part of why you pick the Ashe. Just engage out of nowhere from a couple screens away. Aegis is in a solo lane. That's exciting.
That's rare. The jungler being the one to split push.
Yeah. Yeah, I've found myself there in many situations, and that's when I kind of have to look up and ask myself, like, surely there's something better I could be doing here as a jungler. Like, this feels wrong here.
That's a segue of, you're probably wondering how I got here.
Yeah, exactly. The record scratch, like, I've had to rethink some life choices on my way here. But, RMC, you talked about how when you get Baron, you start off with a plus 1,500 on that counter there.
Yep.
This is a negative play in every sense of the word, right? Red, with really just intelligent, quick map movements, have completely negated this Baron power play from Los Grandes.
And to a certain extent, I'm actually a little bit surprised. I mean, if you think of Red, especially in the beginning of the split, this was not how they were playing. Their macro decisions were questionable at best, to be honest. But they were just so good individually that they were making up for it. And this game, it has been about the macro from Red. It's been beautiful choices, and it has been choices. Aegis kind of getting caught, but this could just all be bait.
The unstoppable there doesn't get enough to get the stun to go through. Jojo goes in though. They've got him locked up. Sees in some trouble here. Envy gets a shockwave down, but it's not enough here. Jojo is the only one that has low health, and you will take that if you are Red Canids. Then Jason the Hole goes out. Brunsey's happy to take it for his support. One kill, not going to be enough here. Aegis goes down, but again, they can't really do much. No objectives up here. That doesn't give you a smite advantage.
No, and again, I'm actually surprised that Aegis even went down right there. He feels so much tankier than that, but no magic resist. So Envy, kind of the perfect counter to be able to punish Aegis. Now, that's one of the macro decisions which I approve of, which Red part of me has been playing for, right? We talked about it's weird that the jungle is split pushing, but as you rightly called, there's no objectives to take right now. So Aegis can afford to split push, can afford to get caught, and even then, those Grandes don't get any sort of meaningful advantage whatsoever across the map. They aren't able to shove the lanes into turrets for the most part, right? Like, it's just kind of still in that neutral state. And for Red, now we just need to wait. Aegis is already back up. The next objective is going to be in 2 minutes, and we can just take our leisure, shove the lanes out. We're not in a rush. We want a team fight here, and we want to take our time to set up that team fight.
Yeah, exactly. Both teams very cognizant of how big a team fight or a pick here could be. Man, Brunsey holding his nerve there, because sometimes that hitbox could be a little bit generous. He had Flash, he had Cleanse, didn't have to use either of them, and walked away just fine with that. That is a little silly here, but you're seeing this 3-stack Mountain Soul, how much of an effect it's having, right? I mean, there's just really not a ton of damage, right? You don't have a true hyperscaler on this team for Los Grandes. You have decent damage sources, but it's so tough to chew through those extra little resistances. The amount of peel that you have from Jojo, FNB is going to be a menace in the back line, and so is Aegis. They're going to have so much to deal with if this fight is executed the right way. You're going to see 2 out of the 3 of FNB, Aegis, and Jojo in the back line. The other one probably just shielding, holding on to Brunsey. But again, backline access as well, right? It's not like Super Clever can do that in a very kind of, in a very easy way here. He's relying on a flank. He's relying on a big flash queue. No,
and for Brunsey not to blow the flash and cleanse as well, you don't actually even need that third person, fourth person to hang back and protect Brunsey. You've got Flash, you've got Featherstorm, you've got Blade Call, right? You theoretically can get yourself out of any sort of trouble as long as you're not one shot during a CC period here. So Red, they've got everything stacked in their favor. Now for Los, their best bet right now is the fact that Elder and Baron are actually rather hard to take and do quite a lot of damage. So if it's Elder, then I'm looking for a steal from C's. If you get the steal, you can swing the fight. If it's Baron, take the Baron downs, wait for the shred to come through. Those are your opportunities for Los Grandes, because Lord above knows right now, if you meet on open equal ground, 3k gold lead isn't that bad. But with the scaling that you were just talking about, for with the way Red can play this out with all the cards in their hands, Los can't win the equal neutral fight.
Los trying to take that more opportunistic fight. You see them kind of just creeping forward here, trying to play a numbers advantage. Aegis isn't around. FNB's in a side lane, right? They know that with a numbers advantage, they could negate all that scaling. They can keep Cabby and Cello safe. Cabby's got the Enchanter Crystal Arrow back up again. Every ultimate available here for Los Grandes, except for the Ace in the Hole. But really, as a Caitlyn, that's not as big of a deal, right? That's not a big piece of power that you are using. You're usually using that, like he has been, to chunk someone down before a fight starts, right? Or something like that. Give someone a little bit of a less favorable hand to play. As we finally reach what could be the pivotal fight here. Los Grandes, they are second to the Dragon. And Red, like you said, it takes a
Oh.
while. But the
found
Champions
Aegis?
Lair actually going to get there onto Aegis. He's got to get into this pit eventually here, RMC.
Oh,
Like to think so.
FNB?
FNB might be in some trouble here. Might be caught out. There goes the Weaver's Wall. Gonna split Los Grandes into two. Aegis and Grefthar playing a 2v4. Here comes Jojo into the back line. He goes. Doesn't get anything here. But Brunsey following up here on FNB. Looking for the flank in the back line. They just chew right through him. Brunsey's left a free fire. FNB gets a good flank. And that'll be all she wrote. Double kill for Brunsey. The seismic shove's not going to land. But the rocks, the feathers, all of those natural elements going to pound onto Cello. And the ace in the hole's not going to do anything. Red Canids walk away with the Elder.
And it was such a risky one. Aegis got caught. FNB got caught. But they are far ahead enough. Cello doesn't want to let this go. You cannot give Elder for free, but it's already too late. The TP from Super Clever will not find anything. And we see Envy kind of walking towards the Baron. They're setting up a trap. And I'm praying it doesn't backfire.
Yeah, it very well might here. It's a 3v3. Envy's got the Shockwave back up already, if you can believe it. Part of what makes this champion so annoying to deal with. Yes, it's that Shockwave, but the cooldown on it and the damage it does, those buffs that Orianna got late in Season 13 have kept her wedged firmly in the meta here. Oh, Lord, it's the pincer to end all pincers. Jojo and Grefthar from one direction, the rest of the homies from the other. It's a 5v3. It's a disaster for Los Grandes. Cello gets aggressed upon. Jojo goes in with his flash, with the quickness, with the W. The CC chain is far too much. Cello doing what he can. He's not getting touched just yet. He's trying to save Envy, but he goes down. Super Clever will not be able to, with the power of the Darkin, save anything for Los Grandes. That might be the final nail in the coffin, RMC.
Before they went one direction, it was the wrong direction. They tried to set up a trap, but you're 3 versus 5. Red could walk into the trap and they'll break you anyways. Grefthar looking for more. Cabby, is he going to be able to get away? Okay, the flash, the slow was enough for now, but there is a wave coming in. Red not wasting time with Baron. They want to look to end.
They want to look to end here. They've still got the Elder buff for another minute and 7 seconds. And they should be able to do this. The respawn timers, I think, are going to be too much here with the rate at which they can rip through objectives. It's going to take nothing short of a miracle for Los Grandes here. Season Cavs just trying to stall, buy some time, but FNB goes forward. Jojo and FNB happy to play distraction as C's goes in with the Magnum Storm, but he just gets ripped through. FNB zoning Cabby off the fight. Jojo was taken low, but not low enough. Finally, Envy and Cello show up, but it's too late. Red Canids take the game 1-0. They weather the storm in the early game, like you said, RMC, and play the late game out masterfully.
And for what is scariest to me right now, despite the score, despite how slow it was, it never felt like Red just blew the game wide open and just, became an unstoppable beast. But instead, they were the inexorable machine, right? They didn't give Los Grandes many opportunities to come back in. Sure, you found 1 or 2 picks, but it was always on bad timers. And that, to me, is infinitely scarier than a hyped up Red that is just playing fast and loose and looking to end quickly. No. This is slow, methodical, and they give you no chance.
Yeah, this looks like, like you said, the more controlled version of Red, I think, is scarier because you know that they have if you have someone that's, it's easier to teach someone who is, a little bit loose how to be a little more reserved, right? And you need both, right? You need to know when to put yourself on the leash, take the safer play. We also need to know when to jump in, take a high-risk play because you know you can outhand someone. We know that Red Canids have that in them, right? If there's one lasting piece of legacy from the Titan era of Red Canids, it is that he left them with an ability to just go forward kind of at any cost. That's always been kind of when the Crash Canids, right? The Red Canids daycare of those young players, the Primos, the Cousins. That is their legacy, and they still have that. But RMC, like you said, I think that is the perfect post-game analysis is, if Red can find this other gear, right? And it's a gear that, in the traditional sense of the metaphor is almost backwards, right? You think, if they find another gear, they can move a little bit faster. But they found another switch where they could play this a little bit out more methodically. That did not, if you took the nameplates off, I would never in 1,000 years have guessed that was Red Canids. I would have guessed that was maybe Loud, but maybe more like last year's Pain.
Sure, or Kate Stars in their current form, right? Because the macro was just immaculate. And for Los Grandes, this is a big problem. This is not something you can fix overnight, right? Like if it just came down to one big team fight and it's like, okay, if we had played a bit better, we can win this. If it's dropped, you can look at draft and say, okay, we just tweaked this in the next draft, we're good to go, we're golden. But it wasn't. The Los draft was solid. Their game plan was good. They executed early. Granted, yeah, sure, they didn't take the turrets, and that really did hurt them. But I'm going to be honest, wherefore, even if they took the turrets, I don't think they win that anyways. And up against Red now, it does feel like Los Grandes need to start introducing some chaos. They need to break this stranglehold Red Canids have. And I'm looking at this roster: Super Clever, Seas, Envy, Cello, Cavi. I'm not sure who's the chaotic one. Who's the one you look to clutch up? Because they've all been really good, but all kind of in measured ways.
Yep. Again, I hate to be this dead horse, but I've described them all year as a very high floor team, right? Like you said,
Yes.
Los Grandes didn't make any glaring mistakes in that one. Red Canids, just a little bit more experience, a little bit more nous, and a little bit of a better draft that they executed on a little bit better, right? That proved to be the difference because the gold lead at any point was like 2,000 either way until the very last 5 minutes, right? It was a very, very low margin game, but Red Canids knew, look, the later this game ticks on, right? You harp about draft and scaling, and these are terms that the average League of Legends enjoyer has just burned into their brains, maybe to a fault, but that is kind of what it came down to today.
Yeah, even when we were kind of saying, oh, this is Red's game to lose, they've got full control. The gold lead was only 3,000 gold.
Yeah.
It wasn't
But
about
it felt
gold
so
lead,
much bigger than that.
Exactly. The way they were playing it just felt like a force multiplier. And for that, like, I think my MVP in game 144 was FNB, because he was the one who, when he was actually down CS up against Super Clever, he was the one who made the big turn happen.
Yeah.
Later in the game as well, it felt like anytime FNB was present, he had to be the focus, because if Los didn't look at him, wasn't keeping their eyes on him, well, your backline was about to get evaporated. And going into game 244, I feel like, hey, Super Clever did a great job blinding his pick and still kind of won up the blind. But we know Super Clever is a really good laner. I actually want to see them give counter pick to that top lane. That was my lane to watch, and it continues to be so after game 1.
See how that shakes out the rest of the draft, the rest of the series. Red Canids take a 1-0 lead. Remember, this is not do or die just yet. A spot in the lower bracket still awaits the loser of this series. Los Grandes not done just yet, even if the series doesn't go their way, but we've got a long way to go before we get there. Red Canids up 1-0 in this series. We'll be right back with game 2. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being here. 4x4 and RMC here with you. The CBLOL playoffs roll on. It is Red versus Los, and Red Kids walked away with, at the end of the day, a pretty clean 1-0 lead in this series. RMC, it was about what you expected, right? Like, both teams executed their draft conditions very well, but Red Kids, at the end of the day, the game went past the 25-minute mark. They weren't catastrophically out of it, and they just outdid them.
Yeah, it's what I expected when I saw drafts, not what I expected nameplates on 4i4. And because of that, we said that there's a lot of questions now for Los Grandes to answer, because Red are looking cleaner than they have been all split long. And for Los Grandes, they still look clean, but that's not good enough. Not up against Red. Not when they've got the hands and the brains. Los Grandes need to change something up, and I'm not sure what they want to do, because they didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of where you start feeling pretty hopeless. When it's like, ooh, we did everything we were supposed to, pretty much. But Red Canids didn't play into anything we were trying to do. They played a very patient, clean early game and a clean late game, which, like you said, is not what we're used to seeing from Red Canids. Even at their apex of their powers, we were used to seeing a little bit. Something we said in draft was like, look, even at the apex of their powers, sometimes they throw hands when they're not supposed to, right? And sometimes it works out, but sometimes they can get themselves in tricky situations. But yeah, I mean, I think we'll probably see, as far as draft is concerned, I'll be interested to see if Los Grandes choose red side, right? Maybe they can switch something up there and give Cello, or Super Clever that counter pick, like we were saying. Maybe just play to a different lane, right? And try to shut down FNB and really give Super Clever what he needs to pop off. He's played a few different picks this year. He's got a good champion pool. But yeah, you saw kind of what the impact was, I think, of all those bans going towards that bot lane for Red, right? They banned out the Kalista, the Senna, and then another pick. And it just made the bot lane really tough to play. But they still draft themselves a really capable lane, and they weren't able to do anything with it. So I think I'm looking at that top lane.
Yeah, I think the other one was the Varus ban that came through. Not to mention Los Grandes banned Lucian themselves as well, right? So a lot of focus in the bot side. And for Los Grandes as well, one thing Red has mentioned, FNB's been very outspoken about this. I think he said it in an interview earlier today as well. Red knew that they had a weakness past 20 minutes in the regular season. They would often throw games at that point. This was an incredibly clean game from them. But Los Grandes opted to try and match Red early. And I'm curious to see if Los Grandes actually decide to change that. Yes, Red has shored up their weaknesses. Yes, they practice a lot for the late game. But for Los Grandes, your strength has been the late game, the team fights, right? That one big team fight to end all team fights. So I almost want to see Los Grandes kind of go back towards that a little bit. Take the Zayas, the Aphelioses, for Cello. Go for that late game skilling instead. And then maybe just maybe, yeah, sure, Red's worked on it, but hasn't been shored up as much as the strength of their early game.
Yeah, maybe it's something as simple as, like you said, if Los Grandes draft something that is a little less blatantly early game, maybe do Red Canids say, actually, we can afford to maybe, throw hands here. We're not just as outsizedly weak early on, so maybe we can afford to create some of our own advantages, bait them into the worst versions of themselves. Now, again, that is like amateur psychology at its worst right there, and that is really oversimplifying the game here. We're already way into draft here. Thank you, Brazil.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like, I was telling you a story earlier about how my mom, my wonderful Brazilian mother, late to everything. I can say this because I'm Brazilian. Brazilians are late to everything. We're late to draft a little bit, but that's okay. Lee Sid, Orianna, grab themselves the Orianna again. Aegis going to be on the Vi again, and Grevthar going to be on the Ari RMC.
Okay, so interestingly enough, I think Red have kept their bans from the first round, and I think the only change up we see is the Xayah removed from Los Grandes. I'm going to be honest, I don't think the Xayah was the problem. I think Bruncy would have done fine anyways. If anything, you just give him a more defensive support. And sure enough, yeah, there you go. You can just pick the Zeri. She's just as mobile, kind of just as safe. And then that allows the rest of Red to kind of pick things that will go in with Aegis's Vi, with this Ari or Grevthar, who when Grevthar plays the Ari, it's not the assassin. It's not what we saw from Dinkido where you go backline and one-shot somebody. This is actually more of a facilitator where you go into the back, you slow people down, you try and land those critical charms to start the engage.
Yeah, and Bruncy on a champion like the Zeri, look, he's got this one in his pocket. 100%. Yep. He is really, really good on this champion. Sort of Titan-esque, where he likes something with a little bit of agency, with a little bit of not engagement, just movement, right? A little bit of slipperiness. Banning away the Draven here from Cello. So now we've got not one, not two, but 7 80 carry bans across both sides. The Lucian and the Xayah were taken away. They don't want to deal with that Xayah again. Taking away the Rakan as well. Jojo, he's a monster on that champion. He has been for a long, long time. Ever since he came into the league, he knows kind of these, the angles you have to take on the Rakan. You can't fight straight up. You have to get creative with the way you want to start fights. But on the other side, taking away the Kai'Sa, taking away the Lucian, and RMC, I mean, you just go with Caitlyn again.
Yes.
Here, Leona. All right.
Yeah, I was thinking Leona Braum as an answer to that Nautilus here. I personally like the Leona, but I think competitively, Braum has seen more play, and understandably so, to stop engages. But we already said, right? Bruncy is on the Zeri. He's got his own mobility. He doesn't need the peel. Pick somebody who can go in. Leona's better at that. And by the way, for a quick stat about Bruncy and Zeri, he's played it 20 times in his career.
Wow.
His win rate is 90%. He has only lost 2 games on this pick.
Holy smokes. That is absurd. Bruncy all time, 18-2 on the Zeri. That is truly obscene. Wow, that is a fantastic stat. Thank you for digging that up, RMC. Sivir, going to be the lock-in here. So again, Los Grandes, they picked blue side. That's something we were talking about was, look, do you go red side? But I think Red Canids also recognizing, look, Super Clever's a way they can get into this one. That's probably what we're most scared of. That's what is the message I am being sent through this draft and saying, no, we are going to actually opt into the exact same matchup because it worked out well for us last time. We don't want to give Super Clever as much agency.
Yeah, and this is why we were kind of talking about, hey, maybe Los Grandes want red side, because if not, what blind are you going to pick for the side of Super Clever? Like, maybe you could go Cassante or Aatrox. Those feel like the 2 most blindable top laners right now, and unfortunately, Red already have an answer ready to go, and they said, okay, we won it last time. We see no reason to change this up. Instead, the big difference, I feel like, for Los Grandes is Cello going for the super late game with the Sivir, rather than that sort of early game with the Caitlyn. And that's an interesting one, because I have favored the Sivir in the Sivir-Zeri matchup. Sivir will out-damage you later on, but the catch is, what about the laning phase? Because Sivir struggles in the laning phase. It's one of the reasons why the only person we see play it regularly was Ninja Kiwi, because he knows that, hey, my laning phase doesn't matter anyways. Now, this time up against Bruncy and Jojo, Zeri's not an early game champ. We saw that yesterday. But I feel like Bruncy and Jojo are going to make it an early game champ.
Yeah, and with Leona as well, right? At level 3, it's just so tough to skirmish with her one-on-one. You could pop the shield pretty easily as well, the spell shield. Yeah. With the Zeri, right, with the Qs, those have a pretty decent range. They can go over the minions as well. Leona, yeah, it's going to be... Bruncy and Jojo are going to turn this into a kill lane pretty quickly here, right? Yep. Leona, the amount of damage she can output early on is pretty incredible, too. Used to... back when the support items was like, oh, you can go like kind of the... the AP defensive item or the AD defensive items, often what you'd see Leona's do, because you can get that auto reset on the Q, is you'd go AD, because that is just like 3 extra damage on each auto. And if you don't think 3 AD is a lot, Xin Zhao literally came back into the meta because they upped his base AD from 63 to 66. That is all it took to put him in the meta again. It matters a lot, especially early on here. And Red Canids, they've gone with a little bit of the same here, it feels like, RMC.
Yeah, and why not, right? There's no need to change anything up. If anything, I'd argue I think their early game strength will be a little bit better with the Ahri compared to the Taliyah. And they opted for that, seeing what was happening here, wanting a way to kind of match the Lee Sin. And for Los Grandes, because of the shift to the Sivir, it does mean they're a later game composition, and C's now has much more burden on his shoulders with this Lee Sin. You need to find the right engage angles later on. You will fall off. And in the early game, he will be the bridge for this team up against Red Canids. If he doesn't find that lead, I don't think Los Grandes will have that lead in the early game.
Yeah, a lot more burden on C's on this Lee Sin, 100%. But if there's anyone, honestly, I trust C's to try to get this to get this done here on the Lee Sin. He's not someone who's just going to let the early game go by with a 0-0-0 scoreline. He's been a very good jungler all year long. Early vision here set up by Aegis, gotten it into excuse me, gotten it into the red Baron pit, or the red Baron pit, the red buff pit. But again, yeah, we're looking at this bottom lane, and why the heck not going in immediately here? The Ignite came down without hesitation there onto Brunsey.
And likewise, Brunsey and Jojo had no hesitation in saying, we will fight you. We are not backing off. Sivir's early damage is incredibly low, unfortunately. And so, yeah, and I don't think Celo even started with the Q either, the Boomerang Blades. I think he just went with the Bouncing Blades instead. So you get that auto reset, but over the duration of the fight, that starts to favor Red and that Zeri. Red just need that level 2. Once it's level 2, Cabby can't be that aggressive anymore.
Yeah, it gets so much tougher. Jojo's going to have that EQ down. Or depending on if he thinks Cabbage is going to keep aggressing onto him, maybe you go QW, right? You don't go with that route. You just go for the extra defensive stats. But with the level 2, with the level advantage, again, this is not a matchup that in theory you should win, but a level advantage like this early in lane is absolutely something you want to capitalize on.
Yeah, I mean, the stats don't give you like 100% boost, but getting access to 2 skills instead of 1 often feels like, hey, it's 100% power boost. It doesn't matter whether you're an early late game champion. It's just the sheer utility value that you do have. That should swap up very shortly. And in the mid lane, Aegis right back to this. We see this plenty of times, but this is a very early level 3 gank.
It really is. He went for, I mean, he just cleared out his top side and went in immediately. Envy willing to back off here, just relieve some pressure onto Grevthar. FNB, meanwhile, getting the proxy onto Super Clever, just monstrously ahead right now. 2 waves of advantage for the Jax.
What happened up there? We didn't see this last time, and we won't get to talk about it because Cabby is already in the mid lane. He's spotted. He doesn't know that, but they could still look for the dive anyways.
Yeah, Grevthar certainly in range here. Sidesteps it beautifully. Lands the charm onto Cabby. And Aegis, he's under his tower. Cabby can't do anything. The second someone tries to bail him out, they're going to get hit by tower shots. Now here comes FNB of all people. Goes in with the counter-strike and gets first blood. RMC, it's exactly how we thought it was going to go level 1. In with the Vault Breaker. Red gets 2 for FNB. They're going to get a third RMC. It's a disaster for Grandes. Triple kill off the rip for RMB.
It's over! You just gave the game 1 MVP a triple kill. FNB is gonna take over, and my goodness, as if Super Clever didn't have enough problems. Like you said, he somehow dropped 2 waves. FNB was proxying him, and now FNB gets a triple kill, comes back, is unstoppable. There is no answer, and a lot of this comes off the information that Red had. That ward that spotted Cabby makes everything go south from a quick dodge, and from there, the pressure coming in. Jojo comes in as well. The CC chain is... I actually don't know if Jojo actually ended up getting assists on that one. Okay, he did. From that one. But yeah, FNB getting the double Counter-Strike as well was huge, was critical. That is an AoE stun. And unfortunately, for the side of Los Grandes, if you split up, maybe you just lose 2. But because all 2 of you kind of got caught, and that just kind of snowballs completely out of control, Los Grandes, you don't have that bridge anymore. I'm sorry. C's will not be able to pull you back from this massive abyss you just fell into.
This is ugly. This is really, really bad here. But now things get interesting. What do you do with this 3-kill lead? Again, you expect FNB. He's, somehow still not a level up here because Super Clever was able to actually, to be fair, get back even in CS and not even up the gold lead, but, even up a lot of the XP here where he's only effectively a half level down. Actually, no, he's up in XP, RMC. I'm looking at the little purple bars under the portraits. He's actually up on XP.
Yeah, because FNB had to split experience with 3 other people. There were 4 people in that mid lane. Envy,
Oh my
no
goodness.
Flash.
Aegis goes in, flashing with the cease and desist. Not going to find his mark with the Vault Breaker. Excuse me, but Grevthar not able to end that charm. But RMC, I mean, going back to that fight, right? Los Grandes opted into that. They wanted that fight. And Grevthar with a game change. I mean, to sidestep the hook, right? Not blow the flash, sidestep the hook, land the charm. Oh my goodness. You cannot draw it up any better than that.
No, and that's the thing with Grevthar. I think a lot of people underestimate his mechanics because he's always down in CS coming out of lane. You know, he doesn't have those big damage numbers at the end of the game. But let's not forget why that's the case. It's not that Grevthar isn't mechanically good. Grevthar sacks his lane for ages. Now, if you're going to dive him and all things are equal and he hasn't had to sack anything, you can't expect him to just randomly go down. He was absolutely great at punishing and making sure that, hey, no, my mechanics are sound and you're about to see it. Right there. We do see the attempted gank from Aegis into this bot side. Won't find anything, but it should give them enough pressure to at least secure the dragon.
You'd like to think so here. No? Okay. They're going to back off it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, again, right? Like, all the advantage that Red Canids have is on that top side. And FNB, he's just going to grab the grubs himself, but Red is still opting to throw hands in this 3v3. Cabby taken very low. That shield might just be enough. He gets out with 18 health.
One more tick of Ignite would have done it, but the shield was just barely enough. And for that was why Red peeled off. They will still be able to secure the dragon, but all along it was bait to see if we could find more off the back end of it. Celo, though, is still nice and healthy, so we'll still be able to sit in lane and still push out, get that CS. And that's critical. For Los Grandes right now, you are just waiting for the skill, and so you want Celo to soak up as much CS as he possibly can.
Yeah, especially solo, right? Like you said, splitting XP, right? As an AD carry, usually you're being shadowed by your support at most phases of the game. So getting solo XP as an AD carry is a little trickier proposition than you might think. Envy has level 6 here. Both AD carries, they're going to pop everything, though. Celo flashes away as Brunsey drops the lightning crash.
This game has not been kind to Los Grandes every time they step up. Now, this one was very questionable. Like, as a Sivir, even with On the Hunt, you do not beat Zeri in the 1v1. You need an item advantage. And so, Celo ends up burning Flash for a decision-making mistake. And I pray that doesn't come back to bite them, because I do expect to see continued pressure in this bot lane.
Los Grandes trying to get something back here. Taking a little trip into the Red Canids jungle. Not letting themselves go quietly into that good night. The lead, to their credit here, has stayed about where it was when FNB, excuse me, got that advantage. It's been around 1,000 the whole game. Los Grandes did get 2 Void Grubs as well. So they're punching back here, RMC, about as well, honestly, as I could have expected.
Yeah, that is fair. They've not just keeled over and died, right? They are still contesting. Now, they don't know red buff is still being done. They'll walk past and see it's gone. And they're actually able to secure it. And I like this adaptation from Los Grandes. Hey, if we're losing the individual lanes, let's just group up early. Now, there is a cost to this, and you will be dropping CS and experience to make this happen. But it does at least mean that C's won't fall behind from the lane pressure.
No, exactly, right? You've got to pick and choose your battles, and it doesn't feel like, again, Los Grandes are over-indexing into anything. And that's, like you said, you got to recognize the cost that comes with anything, because if this was a bona fide strategy for everything, then you just see everyone doing it all the time. But that's not what we're getting. And yeah, to be fair, right, he's up 15 CS right now almost. So he's doing very, very well for himself. The first one to that completed item is, it should come as no shock to anybody, is FNB on that Trinity Force. That is a massive spike early on here. But again, yeah, I think just you try to fight over those Void Grubs. I think you're going to see Aegis here clearing essentially bottom to top. Okay, he did back. He's going to head up towards that top lane again. You've got to find a way to get, to keep FNB, keep that train rolling, use that to your advantage, secure, again, 3 more grubs. You don't have the opportunity to get all 5, right? But you have the opportunity to deny with at least 1. Put Super Clever in the dirt, because that's the other thing, RMC. If an Aatrox is put in the dirt early, the game gets unplayable for him.
True, because a lot of times we've seen lethality Aatrox be the sort of call for a lot of these teams. Now, I do actually think the Bruiser Aatrox with these Sundered Sky might actually be the better call for Super Clever. Yep. And if he does go down here to this gank, all the more so I think that should be the adaptation for him. Aegis, is he able to sneak in? He's done it. He's in the bush, and Super Clever doesn't know.
Now that is gorgeous vision right there. And he gets into the... Whoa, he didn't. He actually got around. I wasn't looking at the mini-map as a caster and as a player. That is something I need to get better at. Looking at the mini-map, because I thought Aegis was in the pixel brush the whole time, but he wasn't. FNB, able to get the counter-strike off on a super clever. Not going to pop the World Ender just yet. Holding his nerve, holding the flash as well. But meanwhile, FNB did pop his ultimate.
Yeah, I will absolve you of the mini-map thing, because our wonderful observer actually toggled vision to show us what Super Clever saw, and Super Clever saw nothing. So we didn't see where Aegis went, whether he skirted bush, snuck into bush, or whatever he chose to do. And in that particular situation, Aegis actually tried to go in and take away buffs instead of getting the kill. It's enough to force Super Clever back. He will miss out more CS, and the deficit continues to grow on this top side. You don't need to kill him, right? Killing just facilitates objective takes, whether it be turrets, plates, or grubs in this particular case.
Yeah, you can still try to take it without it, and that's exactly what Aegis is doing here. Grabbed 1, grabbed 2, and again, this is going to be the 4th Void Grub, so if you can't have it, no one can. That was Red's attitude here, so they've got themselves 4. That's still obviously beneficial, but doesn't get that extra true damage the 5th one will give you. You got Ed, and Eddie, and then Larry. Not Curly and Mo. Curly and Mo were taken by Los Grandes. There's a reference for those of the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah, I think Hawk was running those, was it Dumb and Dumber? Or no, Three Stooges? Wait,
Three Stooges, exactly, yep.
Three Stooges, my bad. I got them flipped up. Yeah, that was, I think, Hawk's preferred name there. Super Clever.
Super dead, I think, here, actually. Wow, not even worth casting this one. This Aegis actually get the flash. Okay, you know what? Shame on you, 4x4. Shame on you. Pops the World Ender, gets the flash, and gets the flash and ult out of Aegis and FNB. So even if Super Clever goes down here, look, they're going to get some plates off this, right? Should this go sideways? Oh, my goodness, FNB. Did the Void Mites trigger that? What happened there?
No, there's just no minions. So FNB, somebody had to tag it. Yeah, Jojo now being kind of hunted. There is Solar Flare available. So this dive is not as easy as it looks. And Los Grandes, I don't know if they think it's worth it. Just zoning Brunsey off, I guess, is good enough for them for now.
It should be enough here. They get the crash down. Able to get the, their advantage there to go on to the Dragon.
Okay. Is there a contest from Red? I mean, I'm seeing the collapse, but they might just be too late for this.
Yeah, let's see here. Aegis, again, doesn't have flash, doesn't have ulti. So if they had that, I think actually Aegis would have pulled the trigger there. But little by little, RMC, the lead, again, still only 1,500. So despite the absolutely disastrous start, look, the top lane, that's where all the advantage is, right? This is going really, really poorly. Let's not kid ourselves here. But I want to go back to something you said, is that, look, Los Grandes, they didn't draft themselves into as much of a hole, right? Cello, he's still going to be a monster in the late game. You trust him to just kind of sit back. And again, this is what we said about Cello. He might be the weak link on this team, but you can trust him in team fights. You can trust this Los Grandes squad in general in these team fights. You've got a ball delivery system for the Orianna. You've got Caveat on Nautilus, which is a great do-anything, made of CC support. And with Super Clever, like you said, you can take that adaptation and just be a bruiser, just be a nuisance, be a body in the back line, right? You don't have to be someone who kills everybody else, right? And speaking of backline access, you've got C's, right? He could pull off an insect. He could do some Lee Sin things later in the game and dislocate Brunsey should they want to pursue that. Double TP coming in here. It's going to be a 3v3 once everything is said and done. Super Clever surviving just long enough here. FNB taking a lot of tower shots. No, just kidding. Grefthar was taking that up the whole time, but FNB finally going to go down. The shutdown goes over to Envy on the other side. Aegis re-engaging here. Gets the ult back up. Pops it on cooldown. Grefthar gets the charm down as well as the Q. Jojo going to grab the kill, but he will pay for it with his life. And he just immediately going right back in, and the best friends not able to secure that kill. The mid-jungle duo, Cabby Brunsey, get a little too big for his britches. Flashes over the wall. He might live this. He might take someone down with the ignite going down. Cello has to flash. Brunsey, one more.
Getting Cabby. He gets Cabby.
How did he do it? And he's getting Cello off this fight.
He's kiting Cello.
He's going to jump over the wall as well. He was dead to rights, RMC. Brunsey, you beauty. And Cello dies for it.
Rejoice, Red fans, you deserve it. And Brunsey, yep, stand up, yell, because you just stood up to Cello and to Cabby as well. In the first place, I need a replay on what happened at bot lane, because when we went down there, it looked like a 1v1, but Cabby came out from under Red's turret. Yeah. So I don't even know, like, where was Cabby? How did he get there? And we got to see Brunsey kind of outplay that top side as well. Red, they're feeling the pressure a little bit, right? They should be winning. They should be better than this, and they know it. And so they went for risky top side dives. Now they're going in the mid lane. This is a 3v2.
Jojo said, I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me. He went immediately and dropped the CC down onto Envy.
More people?
He might pay for it with his life. More people are coming. It has devolved into full solo QRMC. Cabby will survive. He walks away from the fight. In comes FNB. Greftar gets jumped out. It's a double kill for C. Gets into the back line. But FNB shows up, and he's got 7 kills for the Jack.
Oh my
He's
goodness.
perfectly happy to take this himself. I'm going to jump on you, AD carry. I am a fed top laner. I am literally your worst nightmare.
If game 1 was very uncharacteristic, game 2 has devolved fully back to what we expect from CBLOL. The Rivers are running red with the bloodshed right now. Both these teams are hard committing to it. That last fight we saw felt exactly like the top lane fight. Okay, we get to see what happened now. Cabby was looking to try and force the collapse in a 2v1 situation, but Brunsey, he actually got interrupted there trying to get over the wall. It doesn't matter though, Casello didn't have the mobility to chase, and Cabby didn't have the damage.
That's just insane. That's just absurd. Brunsey, you beauty. There's a reason that he got another kill, just by the way. C's has managed to give him over another kill. Aegis given over a kill as well. Envy goes down. Red Canids fully taking advantage of what they've got. Like you said, RMC, it feels like finally this is a pressure reliever off their back because of the insane advantage they built up early. There's no reason they shouldn't be as ahead as they are now.
Yeah, and this was they should have had. This was why they felt the pressure to make things happen. Because honestly, Los Grandes, C's and Super Clever played the early game so well after the sort of debacle that happened that gave FNB 3 kills. The fact that C's denied 2 Void Grubs very easily. Super Clever was soaking pressure. We saw the attempted ganks. It never quite converted. He didn't fall too far behind in CS. And Cello and Cabby, despite the fact that Nautilus Silver is not a great functioning bot lane, were able to keep even. So we get to see Brunsey and what he found here. And it really does feel like C's just got a little bit over aggressive. This would have worked 5 minutes ago, but now Brunsey and FNB are just too far ahead. You don't get to go in and hop back out. There's just too much CC available. In fact, I'd argue as a Lee Sin, if you see a Leona in the area, you don't get to do Lee Sin things anymore. You get to play like every other jungler without those dashes.
Yeah, just back up. Yeah, because like you said, going that deep as Jojo goes right on in. Brunsey, free firing is going to get hit by the Nautilus Assault, but by the time it goes off, everyone else within the area is dead. C's gets bullied into his own base. A couple autos from FNB just took him down. The stun lands onto Envy. He might take this 1v1, but the shield from the Seraphs is going to save the Los Grandes mid laner. Shockwave goes down, and it does absolutely nothing. FNB is large, and he is in charge, in case you needed reminding. Greftar in over the wall as well. Red Canids just bullying Los Grandes in their own base, RMC.
This is without Baron. We are not even at 20 minutes yet. Those are dives you see when a team has taken Baron and they're up 10k gold. Okay, granted, we're almost there. We're at 8k advantage right now. And Baron's coming up in 2 minutes. But still, the fact that Red are doing this is the Red we expected to see. And for Los Grandes, I feel so bad for them. They played a good early game. They made one mistake. And, they made 2. They made the sort of level 3 mistake in the mid lane, and then they make one mistake in that top side fight, and suddenly it's completely out of control.
And this is what we were missing from the last game, right? We to keep drawing parallels here. Actually, I have to hold that thought here. Cabby going in, the TP comes down. Cabby just getting lit up here. Aegis actually able to take the dragon, swipe it away. They're up 2-1. FNB goes forward. He gets a little bit of CC, and now he's in the back line, and now he's going to be really tough to stop RMC. Everyone gets a kill because FNB is just exerting too much gravity, and you know who isn't exerting any gravity? Brunsey on the quadra kill with the Zeri, just unstoppable. It's an ace for the Madman.
Wait, who stole it? Was it Aegis or FNB? That should have been a penta. Give Brunsey his penta. He deserves it. And look at those damage numbers. And with this, Red, they get the dragon. It's only second trick, but the fact that they got the ace as well, it does feel like Los Grandes, that was the last stand for them.
100%.
Right? Like, if they get it, the game goes on. They don't get it, now they're in a 10k deficit. And this fight too, Aegis, easy as you please, just strolls up and takes it. At this point, Los should disengage, but they opt to commit back into the fight. And right here, C's actually finds Brunsey, and it literally does, or actually didn't find Brunsey. Brunsey skated away into the middle of the enemy team, but even if you landed a Dragon's Rage, it doesn't matter because Brunsey wanted to get closer anyways.
Yeah, exactly, and he got closer, right? And it was almost like, oh, the AD carry is within melee range, but you know who else is right next to him within melee range, so we have now the impossible decision of who do we kill. It's FNB with 7 kills. So there was no way you had to focus on him, right? This is the ideal scenario, right? Is your Jax gets Turbo Astro ahead, he gets in melee range, everyone on Los Grandes side soils themselves, they start screaming, crying, sliding down the walls, etc., while Brunsey just rips their heads off.
Yeah, and that does not get better for Los Grandes. Unfortunately, that was kind of their last stand, right? A 10k gold lead before Baron's even up. We already saw FNB willing to jump into the enemy base, even with those inhibitor turrets up, with Baron. The next time we see that happen, it's going to be your inhibitors dropping at the same time as FNB chasing in. Right now, going, just dotting their I's, crossing their T's. They're on to Baron, and there is not even the thought of contest for Los Grandes.
No, absolutely nothing. Yeah, there's just, okay, let's see if we can get something done in a side lane. Let's see if we can push a wave out so that this Baron buff isn't just, turbo deadly, that they don't get to start it in our, past the line of scrimmage in our half of the field. Yeah, this is just damage mitigation at this point. But at 20 minutes, I mean, you've never seen, right? I mean, that goes to show you, we talked about last game how even with Red kind of in the ascendancy in game 1, at 20 minutes, it was like, look, this is still a really risky Baron take. There was no risk in this Baron take. This is like investing in U.S. Treasury bonds. It is free money.
I'd argue it might even be safer than U.S. Treasury bonds right now. But, I mean, the other thing to note was that you're talking about Los Grandes kind of pushing out so that they didn't start on the other side of the map. They haven't taken a single turret. So the furthest they could push was to the middle of the map. And they couldn't even take a turret during that period. And because of that, sure, you did the best you could. But the best you could was neutral. FNB now walking forward solo. By the way, like Brunsey was kind of thinking about it. But the rest of Red just pushing in the mid lane. And now FNB, can he survive a 1v5?
Maybe. If that hook landed, maybe they could have gotten him. But the point is, it would have taken 4 people. And by that time, you've got 4 other members pushing down 2 other lanes with Baron buff. The game might have ended if they opted into that 4v1.
Yeah, fair enough. And now, unfortunately for them, that's the inhibitor turrets down. FNB will continue pressuring down bot. And I'm going to be honest, Cello cannot wave clear against
I was going to say, poor Cello. He's sitting there like, guys, please help. Okay. If he gets on me, I'm going to die so fast.
Yeah, and Super Clever has to rotate down here. I don't give Super Clever that much better odds. Look at FNB just walking in there.
Yeah. No, and I think he might be taking tower shots here. I don't know. But look, point is, that depth charge is going to find him, but everybody else is just going to show up because, again, you've got to blow so much on FNB, and now he's not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with him. Cabby in the back line, again, tried to get Brunsey, and it matters not because that is the world's slipperiest AD carry. It's Rakan with a gun. It's impossible to catch.
Rakan with a gun. Yeah, pretty much right there. And the way Brunsey has been playing it as well, he is dashing forward repeatedly. Cello, bye-bye.
Where did his health bar go? Cello gets obliterated from this here dimension. The physical universe in which we occupy is 180 carry lighter as Red stroll to a Game 2 victory. They are 1 game away from knocking Los Grandes into the lower bracket.
I feel like we've seen Lethality Vi, we've seen Bruiser Vi. We just got to see Magician Vi right there. Yep, Cello, now you see him, now you don't. And Aegis, just nice point and click. Here's the good thing for Los Grandes here. For this is a best of 5, so they are not eliminated yet, despite that performance. And this game was one of those games where you can say, okay, we made 2 big mistakes. The game broke on that. Now they need to wipe this game from their memories and play like their lives are on the line, because it isn't quite elimination, but their lives within this series is on the line.
Yeah, this is one of the more powerful versions of Red that we're used to seeing, right? Is throwing some wrenches in the plans in the early game. FNB got so far ahead. And again, it wasn't really because of anything a Super Clever did. Like you said, the mid game in between the 2 big blunders was actually okay. The gold lead stayed at 1,000 gold for the majority of the early game. Right now, I think, look, like you said, RMC, you got to change something up, right? Get onto Red's side, try something different, because this is not working.
Yeah, and to be fair to Cello as well, it wasn't Cello's fault, this game, right? No. Cello held the 1v1 against Brunsey for the longest time. Okay, granted, later on,
there was that one,
There was that one, but you know what? You could put that on Cabby, right? If you wanted to, for example. I don't think it was Cello. But this bot lane right now, like, Los Grandes cannot focus on it. It has to be the top side they need to focus on. FNB is your problem. And Super Clever is doing well enough in the 1v1, but that's not going to win you a game. Winning the game involves putting FNB in the dirt.
Yep, that's exactly what I hope they try to do anyway. Let's see how that draft shakes out. Again, it was an absolute slaughter for Red in Game 2. They're up 2-0 here. They want to end the series. They want to let everybody go home and watch Brazil play England in the friendly. That's what I'm trying to do here as soon as this series is over. But no matter how long it takes, we'll be here with you when we come back. One game left potentially in this best of 5 for Los Grandes to save their season. They're going to, well, not save their season. They still got a lower bracket run ahead of them. It's not quite do or die, but RMC, after that game 2, after all the psychic damage that they took, they've got to change something up here. We were talking about it before we left break, while we were on break. If Los Grandes have their wits about them, they've got side selection. They've got to change something up here. They put a lot of priority into the bottom lane. They put priority elsewhere. Throw it into the top lane. Let Super Clever cook. If nothing, look, you're already cooked in this series. It's going to take nothing short of a miracle. Yeah. There have only been, since we've gone to best of 5s in Brazilian League of Legends history in the top flight, there have only been 2 reverse sweeps ever. It is not likely to happen here.
Yep, and I feel like I want to say both of those involved Tindo and Hobo, though I might be wrong on that one. Exactly. I know one of them certainly did, because Tinkido, I think, was the one who suffered both the losses on either side of that matchup, Pain and Loud. But for Los Grandes, this is one of those times where I'm happy that we're casters and not coaches, because I love Dion Ray. I'm not as familiar with Medina, but those two have a monumental task ahead of them, and I don't know what you can do as Los Grandes, because on one hand, FNB is the problem. You need to stop FNB taking over this. But Brunsey was no slouch as well. The beginning of that game was all FNB, but the ending was all Brunsey.
Yeah, I mean, but it's made it so easy for him, right? I mean, you saw C's, he got into the backline repeatedly, right? But it didn't matter because, like I compared Zeri to Rakan with a gun, right? He's just impossible to nail down, right? And this slippery little son of a gun just is jumping over everything and says, oh, you're going to ult me? Great. You're going to, do this to me? Great. I'm just going to A-click you into oblivion, right? And FNB was just impossible to deal with, right? He got 3 kills early, and every team fight that he was a part of, the gravitational pull that he exerted was just so much to deal with. But you've seen signs of life from Los Grandes, right? They didn't keel over and die in game 1 or in game 2, right? Most importantly, in game 2, because you saw what they could do potentially, excuse me, from a deficit. But yeah, no, but it's not, it's still not looking good for them, because they've kind of played 2 different styles. Red have played a patient game and then a insane game, and they've won both of them. So here, yeah, I think the onus is on Los Grandes, because if you try to do the same thing over and over again, right? FNB, he's on an absolute tear. He's playing maybe some of the best League of Legends of his career, right? I mean, short of maybe a couple stretches here and there, this is the best he's ever looked.
100%. And FNB, that's saying a lot, when he's always been such an incredible player, right? And now, even more than ever. And for Los Grandes, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak right now, because the idea was good, but let's not forget they did mess up 2 fights. Right, for the first one in the mid lane that gave FNB sort of that 3-0 situation. And of course, the follow-up scrap where they went pound for pound with Red. Red was kind of over-indexing and diving into turrets when they shouldn't have, and Los Grandes was just like, I'm right with you, buddy. And I started kind of doing the same thing in the top and mid lane. And that's what really blew the game open for Red. That's what gave Red the lead and the confidence to be able to close out from there. So going into game 3, Los Grandes kind of need to wipe game 2 out of their minds. They need to come back with the same attitude, but without the same mistakes that caused game 2 to spiral so quickly out of control.
Yeah, and you got to force Red Canids to make some mistakes, right? But, be a little bit more intelligent, try to bait them into some uncomfortable situations, because we've seen Red. I mean, this is kind of what separates the good teams from the great teams, right? Is like when you give them an inch, Red Canids are going to take a mile. We've seen that with Loud. We've seen that with Pain. How they play this very surgical type of game, this very intentional type of game that is, reminiscent of K-Stars, right? That's what's leveled them up so much. The talent on that roster is very, very good, but they are playing so much more than the sum of their parts, right? And for Los Grandes, you've seen that often, because they beat up on the teams that are worse than them. I think the record against the bottom half of the table is like, it's really, really good, right? They were 2-0 against Liberty, against other teams that aren't going to punish you quite as much, right? But against these top-tier teams, you're seeing that this through 2 games, this idea of Los Grandes being kind of the gatekeeper, you must be this tall to get into playoffs, it's certainly bearing fruit.
I mean, that's literally it, right? They are 2-0 against the lower ranked teams of Fluxu, INTZ, Liberty. They are 1-1 against Furia, Kaboom, and, well, Loud, because Loud was being Loud in the regular season. And they are 0-2 against Pain, Red, and K-Star. So literally, they are right now being the gatekeepers.
Literally, that's it, right? Those head-to-heads tell you everything you need to know about this team. Yes, best of 1s are, a bit of a funky thing, right? There's a lot of randomness in them. But an 18-game sample size of best of 1s, and when it's very kind of delineated, okay, you've got kind of your really good teams, your okay teams, and your not very good teams. And the record of Los Grandes shares just 3 completely different pictures. Like that, it's not everything, but those are certainly really big pieces of context.
Sure, it's not causation necessarily, but there certainly is a correlation, and we can't argue that. And the problem for Los Grandes as well is they are greater than the sum of their parts. I'd argue that so far this series 4-4, we've not seen them sum up together. It's been the individual parts getting run over. And we saw glimmers of it. I really liked in game 2 when we started seeing them connect and play as that 4-man unit roaming across the map to stop the bleeding, to stem the bleeding and make sure they didn't just keel over and die from blood loss. But that did come at a cost, and eventually that broke as well. So I don't know. That's why I said, like, I'm glad I'm not the coach, because I don't know where to go from this with Los Grandes. Like, if you're just not able to match up in lanes, that's not something you can fix between games. That's something that takes entire split, more than entire split, to really level up in.
Yeah, no, and that takes a long, long time. And unfortunately, that feels like, because of that, it does feel like it's a bit more of a hard ceiling on them, right? Like you said, it's the individual pieces kind of getting run over here, right? You saw Brunsey, obviously, he's a prodigious talent. We've seen that through and through. What he was able to do against Cello in those 1v1s, right? How he's able to play these team fights. FNB has more experience than any player here, right? He's got everything except for championship experience, everything except for international experience. But this red roster, they've got 7 CBLOL titles between them. On the Los Grandes side, 2. Right? And it's just Envy, and he's been fine all series, right? He's been doing his best, but all the time you sense that the best players on Los Grandes, right? They're operating from a position of weakness. You get to the mid game, and like you said, we haven't been able to see them try to be more than the sum of their parts. We haven't seen the great team fights that we've been talking about that are there, right, in their wins. Los Grandes, they rarely throw games. They play well from an advantage, right? They're not going to make mistakes, but there does seem to be just a cap on how many, on where this team can go, just on the individual skill, at least right now.
Yeah, and right now is all that matters, because this is you can kind of break it down to a series of best of ones now for Los Grandes. Win or lose, it's just going to be best of one all the way to the end. And you just need to win every single one. And for Los Grandes, I guess the only thing you can really do at this point, change up your strategy, change up your draft. And so far, both these games for Los Grandes has opted for blue side. Now, I understand it. The Oriana priority has been huge for them, but I was going to say, I really want to see them red side. I need to see that counter pick for Super Clever. That has been the big issue. Not Super Clever losing to FNB, but FNB just getting comfortable lanes, comfortable matchups.
Yeah, and we're seeing basically, the exact same first 6 bans on either side.
Jeez.
Nocturne taken away just in case they, and I like that, right? Because if Los Grandes are going to make what you could call a mistake of taking your bottom lane, right, and not doing something like a Nocturne Oriana that can be a little bit cheesy, right? If you execute it well, it can be kind of unplayable, right? It can be just really tough to deal with. Instead of giving them that potential trump card, they say, nope, we're going to make you essentially do the same thing you've been doing because we've beaten the snot out of you 2 games in a row now. How long is it going to take you to learn this lesson, old man?
Yeah, and Brunsey on this area now 19 wins, 2 losses, 1 into the late game counter matchup of Sivir, now actually picking it into a Kaisa, who's considered more of an early game style answer to the Zeri, or not early game, but mid game, right? Killer Instinct able to actually run down a Zeri, you're able to outburst the Zeri, and Brunsey just goes, I don't care. I won last time, I'll do it again, just watch me. This time though, Los Grandes actually do ban the Jax. I do like this adaptation, but this does mean FNB could just pick an Aatrox here if you wanted.
Yeah, you can take the Aatrox literally right now, right? Like we said, probably the most blindable of the top laners. Cassante is still open. I trust FNB on that champion, right? You talk about being a nuisance in the back line, knowing your angles. He is a veteran, right? He doesn't have that CBLOL title, but he is still extremely savvy. That was an interesting stat that I saw on the Alistar there. 1-7 in CBLOL this year.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking, Red really raising the stakes right now because Alistar's been getting cooked all season long, and I get, I like it into Nautilus.
Yeah,
though.
Nautilus, exactly.
A good call.
But...
yeah, and I guess this is Jojo and Brenty saying we really aren't worried about the laning phase. We know we can get Alistar to level 6 when Unbreakable Will becomes that factor, and I wonder, that Cassante feels more attractive to me now that you don't, like, you can add another sort of tanky factor there. Super clever with the Olaf. He's played it once this split.
Did he win?
Good question. I'm desperately trying to look that up right now. He did. He did win it with a 9.5 KDA. So it is an interesting challenge. And you know what does really well into Olaf 404?
Aatrox? I don't know.
Darius. Hasn't played it, but I'm just saying, if there was a time to whip that out, Darius is real spicy. Aww.
Oh, Lunar Day, you nailed it in the chat. Nar here. Bam. All right, cool. All right, very, very cool, Lunar Day. We see you. So going to go with the Nar. Look, and this feels, again, the first 3 picks are the exact same for Red Canids, right? And Aegis is 3 games in a row now on Vi. And the impact he's been able to have early is phenomenal, right? And the way he's been able to start these fights, get into the back line. Sometimes, he's overextended a couple of times, but at the end of the day, it hasn't really come back to bite him. But he's got the follow-up from FNB, right? Grevthar really going in kind of right behind the Vi, right? You Vault Breaker somebody, I'm going to charm the other guy, right? I'm just going to throw Qs on top of you. They fought a lot in choke points, fighting in these narrow passages where Vi can really thrive, making Los Grandes run backwards, be clumped up, get the knockups there from JoJo as well, get FNB into the back line. Now, this Olaf does throw a wrinkle into things, RMC. This is not kind of the way we wanted it to go for Los Grandes, but it's funny because I think if Super Clever had picked that Olaf R5, I feel like we would have felt better about it.
Agreed. When you actually know what you're running into. Now, the Olaf actually isn't a terrible matchup into the Gnar, especially we're likely to see Ghost Flash come through for Super Clever, and with the Ghost, you can run the Gnar down in lane. My bigger problem actually is what the rest of Los Grandes has opted for, because this is a deathball composition, but you are deathballing now into a Mega Gnar, into an Alistar, into an Ari who's great at dealing with linear engage, and a Zeri who can kite away. And you don't have a lot of means to really chase down this Zeri, especially in tight choke points. It's just going to be the Olaf running through the crowd. So the Olaf is good in terms of that. It's just not great into this composition that Red have in general, and there is a lot of damage here. So I'm looking at Losco's composition, and it feels like you have to win early, and you have to have a lead. If you're ahead, you can deathball, snowball, try and close out the game that way. If you fall behind, what's the comeback mechanic for this composition? Like, everybody's just a run at you sort of situation. Whereas and you don't have late game insurance. And then I look at Red, and Red, you've got good answers in choke points. You've got a good scaler in terms of the Zeri, and you've got potential good split push later on with this Gnar as well. So it just feels like this for Los Grandes is the equivalent of their late game last game, which was the Hail Mary throw. Like, we are just going to brute force this, and either we win or we are absolutely going to fall apart.
Yeah, we're going to die trying, certainly. You see the Halo Blades on the Kaisa, right, with the Glacial Augment on the Nautilus. Yeah. This is, they're trying to they're going to try to get something done here in this 2v2. But again, Red and, Brunsey and JoJo, they are the aggressors 9 times out of 10, right? That's kind of what they're known for, but they are also a tough nut to crack, right? These two have been playing together for a year and a half now. They know what they're doing. They know their tendencies. And even at their lowest points on Fluxu, they were almost always the one shining thing when everything else was falling apart on Fluxu.
Yeah, and even in this series, they've continued to kind of do so right now, and that's the Brunsey JoJo advantage, right? Even whichever team they're on, every other bot lane always says, "Hey, Brunsey JoJo, this is like a really tough lane for us to play through." I think it was Ranger Natuno who, Ranger was saying that that's the bot lane he respects the most. It's the hardest, sure, B-Voy route, they're doing well, but Brunsey JoJo, that's the one I fear. Now we do see sort of aggressive wards coming through from Los Grandes. You really love to see it, and in fact, C's actually starting in the enemy jungle now, and Aegis is actually forced out, doesn't get the steal.
Holy moly. Envy just dumped everything onto Aegis there. Aegis having to blow his pot immediately. Yeah. And now Envy, he could play this pretty freely, right? I mean, Aegis, yes, he could still gank, but it's going to be really, really tricky now.
Envy can do the exact same thing at the Envy Raptor.
No, he's going to throw the ball in, get a little command dissonance down. Yeah, look at him.
Yeah, and Aegis has to be scared of doing all this. Now the red buff becomes a little bit dicey. If Aegis wants to actually pick that one up, C's trying to take advantage of this. Now, I don't think this is diveable. It's not. He's just going straight through. Aegis does not get a stop sign.
And there goes Super Clever as well. Here goes Cello and Cabby as well. JoJo going to eat the Ignite early like he did in Game 1. Flash and Ignite down for the bottom lane of Los Grandes. The Nautilus so low. Cabby's got to be careful here. Brunsey, you see with those Qs, he's able to get a sneaky amount of range there. And sees he's going to take advantage of it. Indeed, just forced completely out of his jungle. This could get dicey for him. But FNB, he's a level up on Super Clever and tries to make it his problem. Throws a house at him. Sees has shown up. Gets the Q1, Q2 down. Gets the flash out of FNB.
Great flash. And this does leave FNB potentially vulnerable for Super Clever later on in the all-in. And that is something that Super Clever has to do. I was talking a little bit about the sort of Olaf Gnar matchup, the fact that you can run him down. And that's important because if you don't run him down, the range advantage will just be too much. Can they get the dive? TP coming through from Growth.
Wow. This is a spicy little early game. No kills. But RMC, this has been all over the place from both of these teams. It's been scrappy, trying to get any sort of advantage any way they can.
Yeah, and I love what Los Grandes is doing. We talked about how this is a composition that needs to get ahead or it falls apart, and they have gotten ahead already with minor advantages. They're exerting their pressure, and for Red, this harkens back a little bit to game 1 for me. The way Red are soaking up the early game pressure is stellar right now. Yes, Greftar did have to burn the TP out of lane, by the way. He wasn't in base when he TP'd. He actually moved out to the side to get there. But this is Greftar as we know him, right? Normally, you sacrifice for Aegis. This time, you're sacrificing for FNB. And if there is a mid laner I trust to be able to go down CS and still have relevance, it's probably Greftar.
Yep, 100%. I mean, that's just what he does. He's literally made a career out of it. He has won 2 CBLOL championships off of it.
Sure.
So he's perfectly capable of doing this. And again, you've got a guy in Aegis that knows how to facilitate that. Jojo has played with him as well, right? Wouldn't be surprised to see this Alistar roaming out of lane potentially a little bit, right? It's not quite a Nautilus or a Leona where, you know, or something like a Bard, right? That is literally enabled by his passive to roam, getting all the beeps. But you can, but Jojo, right? He knows how to make plays all over the map as well.
Yeah, and if anything, the concern I have about Alistar's roaming too early is actually that they fall behind in experience. We've mentioned before, Alistar pre-6 is probably the weakest engage support in the game, right? A lot of his power is locked behind his ultimate. So if you're roaming too early and you're missing out the CS and you fall behind, that is a point that Los Grandes could look to exploit, especially around that sort of second Drake mark, which is usually when we start seeing all the ults come into play for that one big team fight.
Sees roaming on down here. Bruncey's got to be careful here. He gets hit by the hook, and he's just going to get 100-0. Over the wall he goes. Nice headbutt there by Jojo, getting Seas off him, but Seas still got his flash. He runs down Bruncey. A couple more autos should do it. There's first blood over to Seas.
If you're a Los Grandes fan, this is exactly what you want to see. Bruncey and Jojo being punished for their, shall we say, overconfidence a little bit, because they were doing kind of well. And Cello was kind of solo, so they were saying, okay, we can kind of go for this. Now it's backfired. Bruncey goes down. Dragon is being taken, and this pressure can very quickly and easily snowball into the mid lane as well, where we've seen Seas and Envy be a very good unit together, especially to shut Greftar down.
Yeah, and they're going to have to. Greftar got that D-Vision in there. Cabby going with the flash hook here. Just blew everything onto Bruncey, but Seas held on to every single one of his skills very nicely.
Yeah. Yeah, but large part of it was because that hook landed so early from Cabby. You didn't have to blow a lot of your abilities to hard commit for that. The CC lockdown was good. Seas was just able to kind of ride the Q into that and just punish from there. So, yeah, that's one of the big reasons why they got all the advantages that they did, and can continue to kind of go back to that bot side, because now Bruncey without flash, Jojo without flash is a lot more punishable.
Yeah, heading on up towards that top lane. Envy opting to roam up. Greftar going to get the crash here. A little bit of role reversal from these two mid laners. But FNB, yeah, flashless. Going to be tougher to punish, right? Super Clever still got both of his summoner spells, but FNB, right? If you've got the Gnar, if you've got, if you're able to get that Gnar bar up, you are really, really tough to dive under tower, right? There's going to be some wall that you can slam someone into. And early on still, right? 3 tower shots is pretty much a death sentence for just about anybody. FNB coming back with the plated steel caps. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, just kind of being safe. Like we said, for the Gnar, it's about not getting all in. As long as you can create the space, survive that, your range advantage will win out in that lane. And because of that, I'm actually a little bit surprised we haven't seen Aegis make any action happen. He got set behind early with the failed invade, and since then, he's been just kind of power farming till that level 6. Once he hits 6, I need to see that cease and desist come down in some lane. It feels like all 3 lanes are gankable. You can make a play happen anywhere you so choose, pretty much. So there's no reason not to look for it. He's level 5, and is this going to be our first gank from Aegis?
It very well might be. He walks over a pink ward, but that still might be enough here. Cello gets all in on. The Ignite comes down as well. He has to blow his flash now. Blows the Ghost as well. Cabby there to lay down some defense, so not able to get the kill, but enough pressure. Make this a little bit easier for Bruncey and Jojo. Cello was level 6. You'd like to think that as soon as Cabby hit level 6, they probably had it all in on their mind.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised that Aegis, kind of wanted to go down there, but for all the reasons you stated, yeah, it is a good call. You slow them down. And now, at level 6, Aegis can go back to the bot lane. No defensive summoners left for Cello and Cabby. And if you time it right as well, hey, Dragon's going to be up in 2 minutes, 50 seconds. Those summoners, well, Ghosts might be up. I can't quite remember the timer on that, but Flash certainly won't be. And Ghosts alone won't stop the cease and desist, won't get you out of life from the potential burst that could come out from those 3.
I think Ghost is, what, 3 minutes? I think that's partially why everyone is kind of up in arms about it. It's like, this is a really disgusting summoner spell. At least lower the cooldown on it. Maybe it's not 3 minutes, but...
yeah, I can't remember. It's like 3 or 4. It's around that window. It's definitely significantly shorter than Flash.
Yeah.
Seas. Just doing the Void Grubs right now.
3.5 minutes. There we go. Cool down. 210
3.5,
seconds.
okay.
3.5 minutes. All right, so we're
Perfect.
both
Yeah,
right.
3 or 4. We were right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's gonna grab himself some Void Grubs here. Aegis, maybe on a collision course here. I mean, it feels like certainly this top lane, if nothing else, is set to blow, right? Super Clever going with the plated steel caps as well, right? It just helps so much with trading for these top laners, right? In this meta where you play just a bunch of bruisers, essentially in the top lane. It's a tankless meta almost. Although we did we see an Ornn? Is that what I saw in the
Yeah, we saw an Ornn yesterday. I was very depressed about it.
Oh.
Lonely had the chance to counterpick and punish Weiser, and they just went with an Ornn. And thankfully, that hasn't been the case this series. The top laners have been important. We set up the top lane for as the lane to watch, and so far it has delivered, continued to deliver. And in this game, though, I think this is the first time we're seeing Super Clever actually really start to fall behind in that 1v1. Again, function of the matchup here: Olaf melee into range Mininar, and FNB has done a great job actually making sure he's got vision at all times. So besides that one gank that sees through down the top lane, he's not actually been able to go back up top and revisit that to help Super Clever out.
So we'll try to keep an eye on how those top lane or those junglers want to continue to press that advantage up on the top lane. No TP either for Super Clever, right? We called that out a little bit in draft, how you're going Flash Ghost on this champion in all likelihood. So FNB, again, another thing that someone like him, a veteran who knows kind of when and where to be, at least and has shown that he's back to his best self right now with this team. They seem to be working together. He's talking about how in interviews how he needs to be kind of the dad of these teams, right? You got 5 kids having a, oh my gosh, flash blown, ult blown as well. The Ragnarok pop there. But FNB's talked about how, like, look, I've got 4 kids that just kind of want to run around and just be maniacs, but like I have to be kind of the dad on the team. And once we've kind of found the right balance of that, it has worked out for the better for all of us.
I guess it's still kind of Crash Kenned's, right? The same fueling that won Red the championships last time. Now, I do want to talk quickly about that topside interaction there. We've seen this a couple of times. I feel like if you're going to burn Ghost to all in the Mininar, you just need to pop Ragnarok right away. Unfortunately, the slow was enough, and Super Clever held off on that Ragnarok, and because of that, FNB gets away, burns the Ghost, burns the ult, and it's going to be in a very, very comfortable position. Still no TP, and will not have Meganar, as we do see the team start to set up for this dragon.
NVCs and Cabby going to back off just a little bit here. Ball goes out onto Jojo. The Sonic Wave almost landed onto him. But he's just going to go in here. Gets the flash out of Envy as well. The charm lands. The CC chain is beautiful for the mid jungle of Red Canids. A shockwave goes out. Does it buy them enough time? Jojo going to grab the kill. And Cabby went a little too deep. Brunsey grabs the kill. 2 kills over to Red Canids.
Good eye on Aegis to just say, hey, we are going in immediately. We saw Cello on that bot side of the map and knew we had the numbers advantage. And what kind of shocks me a little bit for is the fact that Jojo does not even have to burn Unbreakable. Aegis didn't even get low despite that engage. So Red Cannon just knowing their power, knowing when to go with that snap engage.
Yep. No, like you said, with Cello, right? He is this is Halo Blades Kaisa, right? They should be a really good source of early damage. But instead you've gone with a call and what I can only perceive to be the makings of a static shiv, which makes me incredibly sad that you're doing this on the Kaisa. FNB says, yoink, not today. Super Clever does have the Ragnarok. Does he go in here? Yeah, it looks like he's not going to take any tower shots either. Just able to 1v1 essentially with a little help from C's. Take FNB down here. FNB down, excuse me.
Yeah, not surprising that happens. Like we said, that's just the all-in. What is surprising is Super Clever didn't even have to burn Ghost, didn't have Ghost burn me, and didn't have to burn Flash. But let's go back to this bot lane, and this really just is the snap call, right? They say that, hey, we go in, Envy creates so much space and distance, but there's just an absolute lack of damage. They even find Brunsey and Grevthar in it, but yeah, who's doing damage right now? C's. That's it. Envy, because of that initial knockup, couldn't quite get the full shockwave, and even if you do land a perfect shockwave, you're sitting on a lost chapter. This is not the power spike that Los Grandes needed to fight on, and that's why they didn't want to fight on it. They just wanted to get vision down early, and the actual engage was just a mistake on them. They should have just left Envy to die.
Yeah, exactly. No, they Red Canids found a numbers advantage. They said, look, we might not have that much more damage, really, right? All the both 80 carries going with a static shiv here. But we've got a numbers advantage. We've got lockdown, and Envy's going to blow everything defensively, and that's exactly what happened. Sees even with that first kill. I don't think he had the Sundered Sky in his inventory either. But like you said, just that CC chain. This is what I talked about, right? With that the Vi Ari combo, right? Aegis and Grevthar playing that really well. It's just one after the other. I mean, you saw it was 3/4 of Envy's health bar disappeared before he was able to just do anything, play the video game League of Legends.
Yeah, and they don't have a tank. Yesterday, one of the big reasons why we saw Pain struggle a little bit with the sort of Lee Sin Ari combo was the fact that Maorang was playing things like Sejuani, very tanky. C's now on the Lee Sin, like you said, no Sundered Sky at that point. And besides, Sundered Sky gives you effective health. It doesn't give you that many tank stats inherently. So if you can't move and you can't actually auto anybody, you don't get that health and you're actually really squishy. Cabby is sort of the pseudo tank, but because he's a support, he can't stand up to it either. And that means all these early skirmishes, as long as jungle mid gets involved, Los Grandes, you're probably not going to be able to win that if you're getting engaged on. You have to be the ones to pull the trigger. You have to get your damage down first.
And I worry about that a little bit because, like you said, you've got to be the one to start these fights. And Cabby going with the ability haste boots here, that tells me that he wants to start fights a little bit more here, right? He's okay with not having as many tank stats, but again, we haven't really seen the top lane get involved as much. So, having all these fights play out, I think, which is very much Red's plan. They say, look, we're just going to continue to bully the snot out of Cello, kind of like this, flashes away, finally, buying a little bit of time here, to be fair. A just took a boatload of tower shots, and it just does not matter. Now, Red have the numbers advantage here. C throws out the Q, not going to find its mark, though. Up towards the Dragon Pit, they move. Still a couple minutes until that spawns. But RMC, kind of looping back to the point I wanted to make, why static shift? Why, Cabby, like you said, he's a pseudo tank and going with ability haste boots here. It just doesn't feel like Los Grandes. I don't know. It doesn't feel like they're indexing into a possible strength that they have.
Yeah, that's fair. I think right now Static Shift does give a nice burst of damage, and also for the Kaisa build, right? Like it gives you sort of the breakpoints you want to get some of your evolves. So that's why we're seeing Static Shift, and it's got good wave clear. I don't inherently hate the item, but I do agree. I'm not sure it's the right one into this area. Who also is building Static Shift, who also will be able to match your wave shove. FNB has no clue this dive is coming through, is mini, and no hope of making Mega in time.
Going forward here, the flash immediately. Dredge line down, but FNB doing a beautiful job of buying time. By the time the ult goes down, Super Clever doesn't have his Ragnarok, and now Los Grandes with the tail tucked between their legs. They are running away here. Brunsey skates over the wall. Ultra Shock Laser goes out. FNB take it forward. Los Grandes pick the fight. Los Grandes run away from the fight.
And Los Grandes don't lose anybody to the fight, which I think is critical right now. I appreciate what they're trying to do. Herald is up there, and if we can punish FNB, who right now was in mini form and was very, very much punishable, we get the kill, we get the Herald. Good call. But unfortunately, Red was also thinking the same thing. Not necessarily in terms of finding the pick, but in just having the numbers to secure the Herald. And they actually have more people there, as Envy was still on the bot side. C's getting pushed off his blue buff right now.
Has to flash away. I think he's starting to learn his lesson. Whereas if I see like we talked about last game, if I see JoJo in the jungle, something is very wrong.
Fair enough, and you cannot take that Lee Syndrome into all these sort of CC support. So, hey, you can say that C's is struggling a little bit, but you can't say that he's not learning his lesson. Red now, they've got the Herald, they got the blue buff, they got what they came for. Just looking to kind of reset right now, and Cabby and C's, they're still hovering around. It's not the FNB Mininar, and that makes me think this dive is not really doable.
TP coming in here. Grevthar and Aegis have joined the fight as well. Super Clever has his Ragnarok, trying to be a nuisance, get into that backline. Season Cabby are low. Brunsey has to flash away, but he's still getting consistent damage down here. Aegis strong enough to go forward. The Sundered Sky gives him half his health bar back. Able to get in with the cease and desist, and it just lines him up for the rest of Red to take down. FNB somehow made his way onto the other side of the map and picked off Cello.
Yeah, FNB caught Cello in rotation to back up the top lane, and for this... Los were doing so well up to this point. You look at this kill score, 2-6. They weren't that far apart till this series of events, and they didn't need to. Herald was already down. The only objective to play for is really the Dragon. Instead, C's and Cabby, it feels like the sunk cost fallacy. They decide, hey, we've got to make something happen here. They call down the TPs, but they weren't even on the same page. Super Clever wasn't there to start, so Cabby eats everything, and from here on out, it's just Red pulling in with numbers advantage, with the health advantage from that early pick. And if anything, I'm actually thinking that Super Clever, Envy, they're a little bit lucky that Red didn't opt to dive harder, partially because they didn't have to wave, and partially because FNB wasn't in position, but that could have very easily been a full ace for Red.
That could have been really ugly. Yeah, and now they get the Itmobile here taking a very interesting route, but eventually it will crash down. Actually, those minions are kind of ripping through it here. I don't think it's going to get a single shot there. Yeah, the cannon minion just shredding right through Shelly there, and will not get a crash. But Brunsey will still get some solo XP, and that's, I guess, a decent consolation prize. There's a bunch of numbers and stats going burr on your AD carry. Los Grandes able to get the Dragon as well, and a little bit of pressure on the bot side. So punching back here, diminishing that gold lead just a little bit. But Brunsey making hay in the top lane as well.
Yeah, I think that series. Yeah, I think for that specific series of events, it was more beneficial to Los Grandes than it was for Red. But that is still all the outer turrets down for the side of Los Grandes, and that makes contesting for any future neutral objectives that much harder. Silver lining, aside from the fact that they also got the dragon, is that Super Clever is the one picking up gold. And we said it before, for Los Grandes, it does feel like this Olaf is actually probably one of their shining lights, especially when they start to fall behind, or if they're in an even state. And right now, forever, undoubtedly, Los is behind. Their one lane that is ahead is Super Clever, and he needs to kind of go for that split push threat, take down FNB a little bit more. He has both sums up, and if FNB can't handle him, I don't think anybody on Red can actually handle the 1v1 split push.
No, 100%. I agree with you, right? I mean, yeah, like a fed top laner is an 80 carries worst nightmare. If anyone, I'd send Brunsey down there, right? Just because he's a little slipperier, right? He could still deal okay damage with the Navori's coming in as well. Brunsey is just a tough nut to crack, but you don't want to send an 80 carry, obviously, to respond to a top laner, and Super Clever. He's a level down here on FNB, but he should hit 13 pretty soon here. Aegis making his presence felt in the jungle going forward. Grefthar and Jojo haven't showed up yet. Selling with the killer instinct. And here's that Olaf you've got to deal with. RMC, he's running down Jojo. He ran down 2 more. It's 3 kills for Los Grandes. And Super Clever is here, and he is huge.
And that is Baron in the eyes of Los Grandes right now. No jungler to contest. If FNB is mini, trying to stop them gets so incredibly hard. Grefthar now playing for what he can, but I'm going to be honest, I don't think this is a risk that you want to take if you're Red. If Grefthar goes down here, Los Grandes get the free shove.
Yeah, this is going to be really tricky here. I don't think Grefthar, I think like you said, he's playing it pretty safe here. Super Clever still has his flash, so he could, in theory, just jump over the wall and just 100-0 Grefthar. That was close.
Yeah.
That was very close, but C's does win the smite fight, if you could call it that. Let's get a look at this, because Red, they're the ones that opted into this fight.
Yeah, and the big critical thing is I think they weren't aware Super Clever was in the area. Normally a choke point like this, it'd be massive for them, right? FNB able to cut everybody off, but with the Ragnarok running, we saw Super Clever just kind of run in there, get the ball delivery system, and that caught Brunsey as he tried to hop over the wall. The moment Brunsey was down, that fight is not one that Red will win.
But now you're seeing what Super Clever can do, right? If left to his own devices, if you take a suboptimal fight here, he is incredibly tricky to slow down here, right? I mean, forget your hard CC, right? Once he pops the Ragnarok, it's curtains. It's really, really tough to deal with this champion. Now Red Canids here just kind of trying to wait out this Baron push, but RMC, 3-1 still in favor of Red Canids, but they've got an advantage a little bit here in that long lane on the bot side. The Dragon stacking still very much an option for them.
And for Los Grandes, they are the closest they've been in gold to Red Canids this game. And that's a great thing for them. All those sort of outer turrets standing right now, that's something that Los Grandes can use to equalize the gold completely. And we said before, their composition, if they get ahead, they can very quickly snowball. So this does feel like that moment for Los Grandes to tip the scales. But look at the map state. Red's the one still pushing in. Los Grandes, it's hard to calculate the math. We can see it on screen. The players can't. So they have to guess from the items, from how they're feeling. And in terms of item spikes right now, Los Grandes are actually even. They just feel a bit scared to pull the trigger. And because of that, this Baron push has been largely nullified so far. They've only got half of it left. 1.5 or just barely over a minute left to keep pushing.
Yeah, and I want to go back to something else we talked about in draft that you pointed out was like, look, Super Clever on this Olaf, right? He's really, really tough to deal with. But you saw the gold graph being up on the left there kind of triggered it in my mind was, oh, the only person that's near Super Clever in terms of gold is Brunsey. I actually think Brunsey's ahead ever so slightly in gold. But actually, is Envy gonna just dump not even the shockwave there on FNB, just a pretty good amount of damage there. But anyway, Brunsey is just so slippery, right? If Super Clever dumps everything into trying to run down an 80 carry, 7 times out of 10, that can work out. If the 80 carry is Zeri with Ghost and Zeri things and Flash, then it gets a little bit trickier, right? Then it's, can you just do damage control and allow Brunsey to kite backwards and just dump damage into Super Clever?
Yeah, and one thing we have to highlight in that last fight too, it was the shockwave that caught Brunsey. If not for the shockwave, Brunsey just gets over that wall, and in those tight corners, Super Clever can't effectively, meaningfully reach this very slippery Zeri that you're talking about. So it is very, very conditional, and that's why we're saying for Red, this comp allows them to play in tight corners really well. In open ground, Brunsey doesn't get away in that situation. You don't have a wall to hop over, and terrain is Olaf's biggest counter. Now, speaking of open territory though, Dragon spawning in 10 seconds, and that is fairly open. So for Red, that is not an terrain advantage they want to play around. And it actually looks like they're completely not going for the Dragon. They're just going for the turrets instead.
Yeah, Brunsey, I think, or rather, Red Canids ready to take this trade. Very happy to. Mid tier 2, that is huge, RMC, and looking like they're going to just rotate towards that next one. Grevthar pushing down that, the lane in the top side. So they get that third Dragon through Los Grandes. They set up Soul Point. And I think that next 5v5, right, that's probably going to be where the game is more or less decided. The game state is pretty even here. But Red Canids, they've still got the map control.
And I'm just a little bit puzzled because Chemtech Soul is actually really nice for Olaf, right? Like, you're going to be low health, you're going to be in there all the time. So having tenacity, having the additional damage is huge. And I think Los Grandes is more than happy to sack that mid tier 2 for this. After all, it is a longer lane for Super Clever to run you down in. It's not that big a deal for them. Whereas Red Canids, okay, that extra gold you got, I've got to see it manifest in some sort of way, or you're going to regret this TP.
Oh my goodness.
Into the back. Double TP?
Massive TP coming in from Grevthar. It's both of them. It's FNB. They just dump right into C's. He gets taken out, and Cabby gets blown up as well. Red Canids, they jump on Los Grandes, and nothing Super Clever can do about it except run away. Red Canids pull the trigger and just shatter Los Grandes.
We asked and they delivered for just as us questioning them. They maximized that play. Without that tier 2 turret, it was so easy for them to just double TP and flank. And now Envy and Cello, they stayed to get the turret. Will they regret this? Envy did run all the way.
A lot of damage able to put in FNB, but he's able to go Mega Narcello going in here. It's going to be enough to keep him alive. He flashes away, never punished.
I can't believe that. Now, was that all a distraction, though? Because now Brunsey gets the inner topside turret, which is worth more gold than the inner mid lane turret, pardon me. Because the side lanes, they changed it a while back to give a bit more gold. And now, hey, Brunsey, the carry for this team, getting richer and richer as well. You were talking about how slippery it is, how hard it is to lock him down. And so pumping more gold into him, probably the best call. We get to kind of see how this kicks off. It's just a double TP, right? And the fact that, hey, there's nothing to stop Grevthar and FNB from being able to do this. Los Grandes just not expecting it, just didn't have the numbers to match.
No, and it's unfortunate, right? Like you said, it was just a numbers advantage in every corner, right? And Los Grandes immediately said, okay, we are we're going to cut our losses here. We're going to go towards that mid lane turret. We've got the Dragon, right? But now 3,000 gold is that Red Canids, little by little, started to run away with it. But again, in a the only time we've seen these teams take any sort of straight up fight, Los Grandes, that's a tricky beast to deal with, right? The Shockwave, right? Able to catch Brunsey that first time. Cello able to reposition himself. You've got reliable ways to start a fight with Cabby as well. We'll see how they play out here, because Red Canids, they've been kind of relying on a little bit of trickery to start these fights. They've been forcing advantages to where they can take fights on their own terms. But look, that's what good teams do.
I don't know. I thought a double TP more than a trick. That was just a straight right to the face, and I don't know if it gets much simpler than that. That's it. It's not something you can replicate all that often. Baron is on the table, and the last time Los Grandes did win a fight was in this sort of linear situation. There is an opportunity here for Los Grandes to try and turn the game if Red starts up this Baron, and for that reason, I actually don't want to see Red go for that. Set up Vision, slowly kind of bait them in. If you find a pick, then go for Baron. If not, that is the throwable position for Red.
Yeah, and again, it just Red Canids, they've got complete control over this Baron pit. So they, Aegis, he's perfectly happy to just get into the jungle and do stuff like this. It's what they've been doing all game. The CC chain, they see this execute this so many times. Aegis goes in, Grevthar lights him up, and there's your numbers advantage, RMC.
Yep, and that's a jungler too. No smite available. So at best, Los Grandes win the fight, but it kind of feels like they have to. Cello finally rotating up from the bot lane here, but Baron's already halfway gone.
They are ripping through it. Los Grandes last standing in. Jojo takes a ton of damage. He headbutted Cabby out of the pit previously. Who's going to walk away with the Baron? Just barely, but Jojo will risk his life for it. 2 kills for Super Clever. They might have lost the Baron, but RMC, they are well on their way to winning this fight. Los Grandes get 2. They get something back out of this.
The throwable position 4x4 and Red. I've got to rewatch that because I didn't see how Brunsey went down. It felt like they all clumped up at the worst possible place. These tight choke points, are supposed to favor Red. Brunsey's supposed to be able to get over the wall, but Jojo just eats so much damage to start. Shockwave from Envy. Oh my god. That wasn't even ball delivery system. Like, Envy just walked up, put the ball in the perfect spot, and playoffs Envy is well and alive and is keeping Los well and alive in this game.
And I think they're going to get Chemtech Soul out of this. This is going to be really tough to contest. FNB, he's Mega, but he has no flash. And he's not going to be able to use his ult. He's going to have to get that Meganar bar all the way back up. Aegis, I think he knows what's good for him. He's not going to try this. They get the Chemtech Soul. That's going to be huge for the Olaf, like you pointed out, RMC. But Cabby might have been off more than he could chew. Red perfectly happy to take this fight again with a numbers advantage, but with no Brunsey. And that is crucial. Los Grandes perfectly happy to take their prize and walk away.
No Brunsey, no sustained damage because FNB was Mega in that situation. He couldn't be the consistent DPS. Now, this Baron, or the side of Los Grandes, is not going to be a pushing Baron. Having lost Cabby there does mean they're going to play it a bit safer. But it's the stalling Baron they needed to get themselves this soul. And good for Los Grandes, or even better for Los Grandes, the fact that, hey, in 5 minutes, when that Baron comes back up, when that Elder is on the table, that's when Los Grandes is going to be looking to really fight. Up to that point, they're okay just stalling, just sitting back. As long as they don't lose more turrets, it's perfectly fine.
Let's see what Red can do on the other side here. They're facing down that Chemtech Dragon, but it still feels like they've never really relinquished the map control, RMC. The towers have always been in their favor. Whenever Los Grandes have taken a fight, they've just been doing so from a losing position. It's not like they can't win these fights. They can. They've proven that they can. That Chemtech Soul is only going to help out Super Clever, who's on 3 items. He is massive right now. But know who else is? Brunsey on 4 items. Yep. He is going to be incredibly tough to kill. And now he's got that LDR as well with the Black Cleaver on 2 members. You know the win conditions for both of these teams. If you're a Red fan, Brunsey stays alive, you've got a shot. For Los Grandes, Brunsey's dead, you've got a shot. Whether it's Olaf, whether it's that shockwave from an experienced guy like Envy, landing that crucial ability, those are the battle lines that are being drawn here.
Yeah, and I love that you bring up Envy as well, 4-4, because I fully agree. I do think Envy might be the difference between setting up Super Clever versus Brunsey, but it has been Envy catching up Brunsey, which has been critical. Baron about to wear off. And by the way, so I'd like to correct myself. I was talking about Los Grandes having a stalling Baron. It's Red who got the Baron. I just forgot because Los Grandes won the fight. So actually getting the soul is even better for Los Grandes because they got it and they only lose 1 turret. That's a win for Los Grandes when the next big objectives come up. And for Red, they've actually been playing team fights a little bit sloppy. They've been focusing the objectives, and it kind of actually hasn't been working out for them. So in that next fight, what I would actually love to see instead is forget the Elder, forget the Baron. Let Los Grandes start that up. And then y'all look to actually punish for a change instead of y'all having to eat all the damage from Baron to start, from Elder to start, and then Brunsey being in an awkward position because he doesn't know, hey, do we burn the objective or do we get away? If you put Los on the horns of that dilemma, then they're the ones who kind of have to deal with that. Of course, the risk being that they might be able to burn down Elder, but I still think that's a lower risk than Red trying to start it up and then 50-50ing it after.
Yeah, and if nothing else, that's a position that Los Grandes haven't really been in before, right? So psychologically, what could that do, right? They haven't been in positions where they've had to make that hair trigger decision. And in theory, I think that could give FNB even a little more agency on how to fill up his Gnar bar. The Q2 almost landed the shockwave. They're going to pick off Aegis against the shield from the Sterix, but it's not enough. Shut down over to Cello. They get a pick onto the Red Canids jungler.
And this time, Aegis doesn't have backup. This time, Aegis can't buy enough time for the team to collapse in. It's not the worst error in that there are no objectives to lose from this. Los Grandes will still struggle to push up. But this end of the game, vision does become quite important. And if FNB does go down, now this could be potentially huge. FNB just punishing Super Clever.
Oh my goodness.
Holy.
He just ripped right through him. Insect kick, Seas goes in, gets the Q1 onto him, but FNB goes Mega, and that's a lot of bodies committed up there to that top side. Not going to be available. Grevthar and Brunsey, meanwhile, shoving in those other 2 lanes here. RMC, this was not the game 3 I was expecting. This is not how I expected this game to go here, but it's a little bit shades of game 1, where Red Canids, they're in control in this late game, but Los Grandes, they are not going quietly. We knew that Los Grandes, they weren't going to be an easy out for anybody. They didn't get into playoffs by mistake here, but we knew that they would be fighting from underdog status here. But they are showing that they deserve to be a playoff team. You've got to play well. You cannot make mistakes and beat Los Grandes.
Yeah, and this might not be the game we expected for it, but frankly, it's a game I kind of was hoping for, especially after that game too. I wanted something close, and I want to see Los Grandes really be able to perform. They're starting to group together as a team. If our complaint in game 2 was that the sum of the parts was never summed together, this game, they have been rotating very, very well as a team. That's where they're finding these catches. The team fights have been going almost picture perfect within the chaos with all the bodies in there. Somehow Los Grandes is finding the critical picks they need to. Now, the macro play, unfortunately, in this last series of events, has suffered a little bit because Los went for the FNB pick. They didn't actually properly set up vision around Baron, so that is still in full red control. And Los have to be careful walking in about getting picked. They've been doing the picking, but it's not as if red can't form picks of their own.
Hey, you've got Vi Ari. Like, that's literally all they've been doing. That's how they've been starting all these fights.
True. I mean, some of it has backfired. I think Age is not as far ahead right now, so it hasn't worked out every single time. But yeah, 100%, right? And it hasn't worked because Los Grandes is grouped. And without vision, if somebody's clearing vision, if they're on their own, then the picks are going to work. And because of that, you can see as well, Los Grandes get vision up to a certain point. They are not willing to commit all the way into Baron because they know that the cost of a mistake at that place is so much higher instead.
FNB's got his teleport. He is rushing down that top lane inhib tower. He's going to get the tower if nothing else here. So Red getting another point of pressure here, right? I mean, you can't do that as much with Super Clever just because of that lack of a TP and the fact that these fights are going to be fewer and farther between. Is FNB going for the execute? He is going for the tower. No, he's going for the TP. Gets enough of a distance there. And now Envy has to burn his TP to come back. This, what could have been a little bit interesting there, but now Red going to start up the dragon. Grevthar takes C's down to half health. He's got a death cap, my friends.
Fight's kicking off.
Cello goes forward. Grevthar taken out. And then Brunson gets the lightning crash down and sees is dead. FNB looking for a way into this one. Taken down, charmed up, and deleted is Cello. Brunson getting 2 and a shutdown. And they just run right over them. Super Clever coming online here, but it looks like it's too little too late. The couple stopwatches buying him some time. He's doing it. The kill there on FNB. Super Clever still alive here. That Chemtech Soul feels so good on that Olaf. He turns the fight around. Not able to take Red completely off the map, but it's enough to stave off defeat.
Super Clever sat in the middle of everyone. Oh, Envy has to be careful. Are their backs going to get canceled? There is a big wave pushing up topside into the inhibitor as well. And Aegis, jungler, is still alive right now. Envy and Super Clever have to back up. And when all is said and done right now, 4-4, this game is still dead even.
And you saw that right there. Super Clever. I didn't think it was going to be enough. I thought they had too many bodies on him. It was going to be too much damage onto this Olaf. But with the Death's Dance, with the Sterix, he just did not die.
Yeah, and the fight started so weirdly as well because Los looked like they're in a better position, but because C's got chunked by Grevthar early and Cello actually opted to go for the Ahri who just dashed away, Los didn't have the initial damage. So it literally just came down to Super Clever being Super Clever. He got in his phone box, he changed his clothes, he went and took off his glasses, and Clark Kent went mad right here. You can just see, like, there's just no stopping him. And Brunsey going down early as well is an issue. A lot of these fights, Brunsey has flash. Brunsey is just not using it to get out. And that's been the cause of quite a few of these team fight losses. Now, it is available for this fight when a lot of other summoners are down. So if it ends up being worth it, then hey.
Oh, Aegis, he gets insect by C's, and that's it.
Oh,
He's
no.
gone. 4v5 again. Aegis went for the hero angle, but couldn't find it. FNB not going to get hit by the shockwave. That's down for Envy as well. So that could be a way that Red find their way back into this one. Dredgeline into depth charge. The W goes out. Cello not going to follow it in with the killer instinct. The Elder is locked up by Los Grandes. Can they lock it down? Aegis is dead. No smite available to contest. Red Canids, they're peeling off at RMC. Los Grandes get the pick. They get the Elder.
It's not the fastest Elder, but it's the safest. Look at their health bars. Nobody was taking damage. They were able to cycle so effectively between the shields, between the self-healing, the sustain. They're fine. And they go from Elder into Baron, and they'll get about a minute and a half of massive pushing pressure where Red can't resist it. Red, are they even going to try and contest this? I see Brunsey and Jojo stepping out. I don't think that's the call. I think you just push out your waves and buy as much time as you can.
You see Grevthar on the bottom lane doing just that. That top lane has been shoved in for pretty much the last 5 minutes at that position.
Yeah.
So like you said, just it's damage mitigation now for Red Canids. In a straight up 5v5, they feel like they can still take it, right? But with the numbers disadvantage, without that lockdown that Aegis provides onto Cello, onto Envy, onto somebody not named Super Clever, That gives them a way back into this one. But RMC, we've got ourselves a ball game here.
We do, and we didn't really expect that.
No.
After all, with the scaling that Bruntsea had, this should have been more cut and dried, but there's a reason why we highlight the top lane. Super Clever is the force to be reckoned with. 7-1-4, and this is the first time we've not seen FNB be the bigger top laner within this match. Aegis now looking to try and actually go into the base and take the inhibitor, but Super Clever is there and waiting. I see FNB there. I don't think they win that 2v1, especially not when Elder is still ticking for another minute.
Yeah, exactly. Still another minute exactly here for the Elder Dragon. They know they can't fight here, right? You give Super Clever an inch with a situation like this. He's got the Ragnarok. He's going to take a mile. He's on 4 items right now.
Yes.
And he's just... he's so difficult to kill, man. It's so hard to take him down. 7 kills on this man. They've got him to thank if they are able to turn this game around. We talk about Envy as well. He's been a bit of an unsung hero, but C's as well. A couple of really timely picks, using the insect pretty well here, right? I don't know who's calling the shots here necessarily, but Los Grandes, they played very well from behind here, but just their 4th tower of the game here. Cello has to pop the stopwatch.
So dead.
Late on the rotation.
No
and,
wages!
Oh my goodness, wait, he's going to survive it. He is not Omega dead. Again, the Elder is still ticking down. They still got 15 seconds of it. They are chasing them to high heaven. C's looking for a Sonic Wave onto Jojo, onto somebody to jump off of. Disaster averted there for Los Grandes. And now Grevthar just says, okay, I'm going to go back to the bottom lane. I don't have TP up just yet, but it should be up soon. You guys can handle that, right?
Yeah, and that's illegal for Envy actually rushing back with the Baron buff, able to defend right now. But Los Grandes, their push with the Elder was very lackluster. They opted for the top lane where there were more turrets to get, more gold to get. And at this stage of the game, I don't know if that global gold is really worth it. I think cracking the base is far more important. Taking down mid and that pressure there is more important. And Red, they played with fire, but they managed to get out. They didn't have to deal with the Elder. And Baron buff in terms of AD and AP, it's a nice little chunk, but it's not enough for me to feel confident about Los Grandes using that to team fight. And they are certainly not using it to push any more effectively. They've got 19 seconds left. That won't even get them to any of the remaining turrets.
When you see here, for the first time since the 13-minute mark, Los Grandes have the gold lead. But like you said, you don't know how really much of a difference that's going to make, right? It really feels like it's about map state and map pressure, right? Once you get that team fight, what can you do off the back of it? If you win that team fight, because we've seen the last couple times Los Grandes have won a team fight, they've done nothing with it because the map has just been under siege constantly.
Well, are we base racing? Okay, no. The base is starting to come through from Los Grandes, but they have lost initiative on the map right now. I don't know why they opted to kind of move towards that bot side of the map there. They aren't going to be able to find anything, and Red were just like, oh, okay, well, if we're going to do that, we'll just threaten your base. And because you have an inhibitor down, or inhibitor turret down, already, Los Grandes will always lose out in terms of just how fast we can push out on this map pressure. And however, there's no objective to fight over right now, so the game for the next minute is just going to be the seesaw of the lanes, and Red seems to be doing better in that department.
Well, and they've certainly put themselves in a position to do better, right? They've pushed that line of scrimmage up very, very far. Now, to be fair, Los Grandes, they've started to punch back, right? Mid-tier 2 is down. Top tier 2 is also down. So they've got a couple lanes that they could play through, but with a naked inhibitor on the top side for Los Grandes and a near naked inhibitor on the bottom side, just wearing underwear and socks effectively is that inhibitor on the bottom side for Los Grandes. It's still really tough, right? Any mistake will result in Red winning the game. Whereas for Los Grandes, if they get that team fight, it should be a win, but it's gonna be just that little bit trickier.
I'm still a little bit unsold on that because of how the team fights have been breaking out. It's been Los Grandes finding usual picks to kick things off. And hey, if you can find them, obviously that's great. That works. And we don't argue with what works here on Summoner's Rift. But a full-on 5v5, I do still see an angle for it. I don't think it's quite cut and dried. Bot side inhibitor turret goes down as Red continues to play the macro game. And 4v4, we talk a lot about like sort of the pressure. Normally, having Super Clever be unmatched in the 1v1 should mean that Los Grandes have the better split push. But because of the lack of TP, Cello, bro. I'm getting heart attacks from Cello. That's the second time he's been caught out of position. But going back to my point, not having the TP for Super Clever is what's giving Red this edge right now in terms of this macro play back and forth. Now, 30 seconds on the Elder. Look at the map. Red have it lit up. Los are in the dark.
Yep, still able to press that advantage, still able to make it so that, like you said, they're seesawing the waves back and forth, but with the TP advantage, Grevthar and FNB, they're pushing out the side lanes, and making it so that, look, they're not going to have any sort of advantage. If they go in here, I got a second there, TP. He just going to join in the fight as well. Brunsey gets a little bit of damage out of Cabby. Grefthar is TP down. FNB gets locked up here. Isn't mega. Cabby goes down. There's a numbers advantage they're looking for here. Sees, kicks Aegis away from the fight. Jojo goes in, gets the knockup. Brunsey's free firing. Here comes Super Clever. He's going to need a miracle play. The lightning crash goes down. He can't get on the Brunsey, so he's just got to go backwards. And that should do it. Red Canids get the advantage they want. They keep Brunsey safe. The shockwave is almost enough. Envy almost pulled the rabbit out of a hat. Almost pulled out the series for Los Grandes, but they are headed for the lower bracket. Red Canids get a testy but solid team fight. Brunsey carries them to victory, and they will move on to face Loud in the second round.
As you said, you can take Titan out of Red Canids, but you cannot take away the clutch factor. The rest of this team clutches up when it matters. Super Clever, your dying last gasps. Actually, yeah, he is actually dead there. For a second, I was like, wait, the health bar's still showing. And Red, they end it with a clean 3-0, 4x4. You will have time to watch your friendly match between Brazil and England.
Woo! With 10 minutes to go, kickoff still not for a little bit. All the Brasileiros in the chat, go watch them beat the English at Wembley. It's going to be a blast, even though we are very injured at the moment. No Neymar. I think Martinelli didn't even get called up. He's injured. Gabriel Jesus, for some reason, didn't get called up. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to wrap up this series right here. Then we can talk a little bit more soccer on the other side. RMC, it was testy there for a bit. Again, Los Grandes, they're not going to be an easy out for anybody. But again, you saw when resources were given, when advantage was given to Super Clever, what this kid can do. He's special, man.
Yeah, these rookies, this is the rookie generation. It feels like this split has just been rookie after rookie popping off. And, you know, these two teams, they should be proud. These games were good today. And Red Canids, they showed us different play styles. They showed us patience in game 1. They showed us excitement in game 2. And here in game 3, they came out clutch. Los Grandes, likewise, the recovery from the game 2 to give us this game 3 was nothing short of stellar. And Los Grandes, if they can perform this way, I think they can still make a deep run in the lower bracket.
No, 100%. Yeah, because they will, you know, if you don't show up kind of on your day, it's going to be tougher for you. So they are going to go down to lower bracket. They will play the loser of either Loud Red or Pain Cade, but that's not going to be for another 2 weeks. Yeah, because next weekend is going to be Cade versus Pain and Loud versus Red. Banger alert. Those are going to be phenomenal series. They're going to be so much fun, especially I'm looking forward to Red versus Loud. I think that just has chaos written all over it, which makes me very, very excited. RMC, talked about Los Grandes a little bit. Let's hit Red. I mean, look, again, it was a testy little game 3 there. Aegis with a couple of oopsies, right? You saw that he and Grefthar, right? They were kind of going for these really aggressive picks, and in games 1 and 2, them camping in the opposing jungle and just REACC chaining you to death, that worked great. Los Grandes eventually got wise to it.
And give props to Aegis and Grefthar. Game 3 looked bad for Aegis, but I actually want to highlight he did the exact same thing he'd been doing all of game 1 and all of game 2, right? So there is a lot of consistency there. It's really about how other teams are learning and adapting with it. Now, it is a bit of a concern to me that Aegis and Grefthar kept going back to that. And I need to see if they can do something different, but until they lose, I don't expect to see them do anything different. And FNB, Brunsey, and Jojo, the side lanes for Red Canids. My goodness, what absolute beasts, right? It started with FNB just being the big monster games 1, game 2, but Brunsey started coming on, and in that last fight, it just simply came down to, as you rightly called out earlier, can you kill Brunsey? That is the entirety of the game. And in that last fight, the answer was no. You saw what Brunsey was able to do when he finally wasn't in a bad position, wasn't kind of caught in by a shockwave in a tight corridor when Super Clever couldn't completely get on top of him.
And Brunsey just tore them apart with the rest of the help from his friends. GG's to Red Canids. They're talking about a formidable opponent for anybody. Let's get that bracket up on your screen for you, so you get exactly what we've got going down here. So you see Pain versus Cade. That is your 4th seed versus your 1st seed. That is going to be at noon Eastern. Next Saturday, the 30th of March. Loud versus Red, noon Eastern again. So same time, same place here. But that's going to be on Sunday as well. No more this Friday, Saturday nonsense. Except for, of course, the weekend after that when we have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But yeah, so by next weekend, I think that Sunday match, usually how they do it is that'll be kind of this round 3 that you see on your screen here. We'll decide one of the teams in finals by the end of next weekend. It'll be one of Loud, Pain, Red, Cade. Should be a ton of fun. Kaboom and Los Grandes, they're going to have to win 1, 2, 3 best of 5s just to get back to the finals. But you see that advantage, right? For the 1 and 2 seeds, you win 2 best of 5s, you're in finals already. It's really, really nice for Loud and Cade. I think they've cemented themselves as just a cut above a deserved 1 and 2 seeds here. But the playoffs, as you know in CBLOL, and if you don't know, now you know that it is a completely different ball game. It is chaos. You can throw everything you learned in the regular season out, and you can still be just as informed as the rest of us. But we thank you for being here. I've been 4x4. That's been RMC. Tune in next week when we get those round 2 playoff series on your screen right there. RMC, any final thoughts for the people before we let them go?
Man, both matches next weekend are going to be absolute bangers. You highlighted K-Stars. You highlighted, pardon me, Loud and Red. But Pain K-Stars is going to be right up there as well for I wish we could just fast forward straight to next week.
I know. It's going to be so much fun.
So good.
That's going to be a blast. We hope to see you there. We will certainly be here. We can't wait to share the rest of this wonderful league and its playoffs with you. For everyone I've mentioned, I've been 4x4. Thank you for being here. Again, your final score, Red takedown Los Grandes 3-0. We will see you back here next weekend. Have a great rest of your day.